Bolt your windows. Lock your doors. Check your closets. Look under your bed. And then prepare yourself. For it's another episode of Dark Knight of the Podcast. Whoa!
Hello, Dark Knight of the Podcast fans and friends and followers. The last few episodes we have covered have just been a blast, and we love that you all are giving us such wonderful feedback. And we've just had such a great time discussing these films. But one thing that I've noticed, and one thing that I feel like personally I have been somewhat deprived of, is Dark Knight of the Podcast. We promote this as a queer horror podcast, specifically from the perspective of two gay men. And I feel like some of the last few titles we just have not been gay enough. And I know the fans, I know they demand it. They want it gayer. They want it gayer, gayer, gayer. And so today I feel we're really up in the ante when it comes to homosexuality. Because not only is the title that we're covering extremely gay. I mean, I don't think you get much gayer than this movie. But I would also say our wonderful guest today is someone who I would describe as aggressively gay in the best possible way. Do you take that as a compliment, Sean?
Well, considering that I'm ski polling both of you on either side of me now, yes, I absolutely do.
Oh, my goodness. Perfect. The perfect way to introduce it. Sean Abley, everybody. And not Abley. I was really scared my Cleveland accent was going to come out with that, but I specifically checked beforehand. Sean Abley is our guest today, and the film he has selected for us is one that Troy and I have been hungry to devour on the show for quite a while. Is that not true, Troy?
Oh, it's been on my, you know what, if you looked at my notes, because I have a list on my phone of all the films that I want to cover eventually on the podcast. It is right at the top. I don't know why I haven't picked it sooner, to be honest with you. I think maybe because I think it can be argued by some that maybe it's not really a horror movie, but we had covered Angel in the past, and I mean, they have very similar vibes. So I'm glad that we are finally covering it. I'm glad that we have Sean to discuss it with. I cannot wait to get into the conversation about the film.
I like to think we saved this for like a special occasion, and I do think this is a special occasion, and I'm happy, Troy, that you mentioned Angel, because when I was telling Sean, like, if you're going to get your feet wet and listen to an episode that I think is a great example of us at our gayest, it is our episode of Angel with Roman Community. That's like a year and a half ago. That's a while back, but that is, to this date, it's one of my favorite titles we've reviewed because it is a little bit like out of the norm for us. But I'll say, like, this film that we are going to review today, I've heard the commentary that it's not a horror film, but that doesn't mean it's not fucking scary at times. And I will stand by that. But before we get into it, before we start dissecting the film, we need to focus on the guest. And Sean, like, I really feel like we couldn't get a better guest on here right now because you are doing so many things. You have so many, like, pots on the stove. It seems like a bunch of them are about to boil over in the best fucking possible way. But, like, I mean, I'm looking at you on my screen right now. I see Fangoria across your chest. I know you've got a relationship with them. I just want to know, like, where did this all begin for you? Like, you clearly know this genre so well. Where did your passion for horror start?
Well, you're right. I am the perfect guest. And so you're just going to have to shut it down after this. Like, ladies and gentlemen, the last episode of Dark Knight of the Podcast.
That would probably make some people happy, actually.
It's interesting. I've been talking about this quite a bit lately and really sort of drilling down on, like, as a gay man who grew up in Montana, who loved horror movies, like, how does that all sort of come together, right? And I've said this numerous times, and I think it's even in my book that we'll eventually talk about, I'm sure, that I never had a problem with being gay. Even though I was growing up in Montana, like, I grew up in a liberal household, the word was spoken. I knew what it meant. I knew what I was. I didn't wrestle with that. What I wrestled with was the fact that I was a gay man who loved horror movies, because everything that came to me about gay men, what limited amount of, information I got about gay men when I was a kid in the 70s, was like gay men like the finer things. Gay men were fussy, you know what I mean? And so Herschel Gordon Lewis movies were not on the menu for gay men, but they sure were for me. And so I actually felt, I knew that I would grow up and I would move out of Montana and I'd go to a city and I would have my big gay life. But the horror movie thing, I thought I was going to be completely isolated. I thought I would never have horror movie friends or anything like that. And of course, obviously, we are disproportionately represented in the fandom, I think, for horror movies. So thankfully that wasn't true. But when it comes to why horror movies, this sort of landed for me really recently. And that, no matter what kind of horror movie you like, and we like all different kinds, there's one thing in common with basically all of them, which is they're about ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And to survive the extraordinary circumstances, the ordinary person has to become extraordinary. And if there's a better allegory for growing up gay in small town America, I don't know what it is. And so I think that's what drew me to it, right? It's like, even if the people didn't live at the end, it was that in that struggle against, the bad guys that would do you harm. And, as gay men, we have sort of free floating trauma over that, or at least I did. And the thing about horror movies is not only did it sort of mirror my struggles in my life, but it also had a beginning, middle, and end. So being eternally bullied, all through grade school, middle school, high school, that was never ending. But horror movies had a beginning, middle, and end. And so you could watch that and get that sort of emotional catharsis over and over again, right? I watch horror movies to fall asleep, to go to bed. So I think that's sort of why it started for me and where it started for me. I also had I have some quibbles with my parents. By quibbles, I mean huge fucking issues. But the one thing that they did was feed me a nonstop diet of science fiction, horror, and exploitation films from the minute I was old enough to go to the drive-in with them. So
that's so relatable. I think for a lot of our fans, I know for Troy and I, having a family of parental relationships that encouraged the genre was really helpful. And it did, I think horror provides, in a way, for young gays who are growing up feeling outcast, it's like a shield in a way, because of what you said, the underdog rising up in the face of adversity and overcoming. And I that echoes for me. You're so well spoken. I've got to say that right off the bat. And I think that makes a lot of sense because your talents cover a lot of bases. You're a journalist, obviously Fangoria. You're a novelist. You're a playwright. You're a screenwriter. You said you have a play that's launching right now in New York, right? Is that what you had said earlier?
Yeah, I'm in Buffalo. Just for everybody, I'm in Buffalo, New York right now, getting ready for my play to open next week. But I live in Los Angeles. That's my home base right now. Grew up in Montana, moved to Chicago right out of college, was there for 10 years, and then moved to Los Angeles, and I've been there ever since. Yeah.
Glamorous, traveling to Buffalo. Luxurious. But no, I mean, it's clear that you cover a lot of ground with your skills. And what I really appreciate, what I see from you that is very, very obvious in how you promote your work is everything you do is very rooted in horror, but you spread the love to the queer community. That is a big focus for you. And I really appreciate that. And you do have several works coming out recently released and other things you're working on that are rooted within the queer community. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Sure. Well, the first I want to give a quick shout out to campblood.org. I don't know if people remember that website, but it was the first sort of gay tinged horror website. I was the first blogger to focus on LGBTQ filmmakers working in horror. It was called Gay of the Dead. It started in 2009 on the Fangoria website. And Tony Timpone, who was the editor at the time, we'd known each other for years, at conventions and stuff like that. And he just called me out of the blue one day and offered me the chance to write that blog. And it really sort of changed my life. I had wanted to write for Fangoria my whole life. I wanted to write for Famous Monsters before that. And suddenly I was writing for Fangoria, and and like told to do a gay, then we called it gay horror. Now we call it queer horror, but like then it was gay horror, and told to do this gay horror blog. It was kind of amazing. Fangoria had been backing up a little bit. I don't know if you remember when Clive Barker came out on the cover of Genre magazine, which no longer exists. That they got that scoop. Tony Timpone wrote this. They called it Elegy. That's the editorial in every issue of Fangoria about how it didn't matter that Clive Barker was gay. It was irrelevant to his like genius as a horror person. And I was so like, it was the best day of my life. And because it's suddenly like that like literally that day, my fear as a young person that I would have no horror friends evaporated. And so I wrote a letter to Fangoria thanking them and asked them to include my address, so if there was any other gay horror fans out there, they could write to me. And they did. And as a matter of fact, Scott Witherall, who I don't know if you know him, he's a fan. He was one of those people that wrote to me back then in like what was like the mid 90s. And I literally just saw him at my book signing in Los Angeles.
He was at the Houston Horror Film Festival. He lives here in
I'm
Vegas.
sure.
Yeah, he lives here in Vegas with me. I live in Vegas.
Yeah.
And he gave me a ride to the airport from Houston. So yeah, no, I know Scott very well. Great guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
Huge supporter of the genre. He travels around to all kinds of different conventions, living the best horror life. But he is such a wonderful guy. Yeah.
I mean, so yes, he and I have kept like all of our correspondence over the years back when it would be on like actual paper. And so I'm sort of jumping back and forth, but that was sort of like my beginning of like Fangoria was like the and Tony Timpone were the reasons that I discovered that gay men loved horror movies. And then, direct line from that point to Tony offering me that blog spot, which was 15 years ago now. I've been writing for Fangoria for 15 years. And so when we got to the gay horror blog, I didn't really realize at the time like that what I was doing was so different. But it became apparent really quickly that this was sort of a void that needed to be filled. And at the time, it was actually kind of difficult to get filmmakers to go on the books as gay in print. And now, of course, I mean, there's the two of you. There's just like we're overflowing. We're lousy with LGBTQ horror filmmakers now. So that's led to the thing, this Patreon, which is also called Gay of the Dead, which you will both be in. It's rolling out as a Patreon. Eventually it's going to be what I call a coffee table zine of interviews with folks working in the genre. So that's sort of the ongoing thing. But the thing that's, I think, right literally of the moment is the queer horror film guide, which is the encyclopedia that I created and co-edited and was one of the 8 contributors that just came out, which is this huge encyclopedia of like as many films, like 900 plus films that all have horror films that have queer content in them. And it's literally rolling out this week. So people are slowly but surely getting them. And it's kind of exciting, and it really hasn't like hit yet, if that makes sense. Like I know that it's happening and we had our book signing, but like every day a new person says, "Oh, I got my book." So it's just sort of kind of starting.
I want to be clear to our fans too. I just want to say, like, this book, Troy and I had a chance to peek at this, and like,
did you look at the link I sent you?
We looked.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah.
Let me just say, like, how extensive.
Absolutely.
Like, I was in awe of what you and this team pulled off with this book. And I mean, really, I want to say the title again: Queer Horror, a film guide, literally coming out this week. We got you at the perfect time for this. I am so impressed by this. I'm so curious about the process, like what it took to get all of this compiled together, all of this information. I can't imagine how many hours you put into this. But that process, I'm just a little curious, like, how did this come about?
So I think both of your work is represented in the book. I think both of you made it into the book. I know, Roger, you're in there. Troy, I think you're in there.
Teacher shortage is
Yes.
in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
someone pointed it out to me. I was like, oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, and it's great. It's so extensive, and yeah, I've seen a few friends post about it on their timeline, just talking about, oh my gosh, I wish there was something like this out when I was younger. When I was first getting into horror. But yeah, I was overwhelmed with how extensive this is.
Well,
I have a photo in it, and I
that's
was like,
right.
I was like a fucking wreck. I was so like, oh my god, like, oh, mood is
Yes.
rising.
I think somebody's actually like stepping on your face, I think, in that photo.
Yeah, I with mascara running down my face. It was gay. I mean, I get why you used it. It's very gay.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a book called The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, also known as the Science Fiction Encyclopedia, depending on what country you get it in. There's a British version and an American version that I got my hands on when I was 13-ish, maybe younger. It is even bigger than my book. It is teeny tiny print, 3 columns, like the thick, you could, use it as a weapon. And I read it cover to cover when I got it as a kid. And ever since then, I wanted to write that book. I guess I've had very specific desires as a child. I want to write a film encyclopedia. And so eventually, around, gay horror started becoming a thing in the mid 2000s. And I started my blog in 2009. And eventually it just felt like, well, this book doesn't exist yet. I could write this book. Let's write this book. So I just reached out to Daniel W. Kelly first. He does the Boys, Bears, and Scares website. And he was already basically doing the work. He was just like slowly but surely watching movies and writing about them and cataloging them on his website. And so we used his master list to get started in like 2015, I think it was 2014. And it was a couple hundred titles long. And I thought the book was going to take like a year to get done. And then as we started working and adding more titles, then of course we moved past just gay to include the whole rainbow. And then right there you have, Jess Franco made 100 lesbian vampire movies just by himself. Like suddenly the list is like gigantic. And we got a list of about 1,000 titles, and it took us, and I gradually pulled on more writers, and then Tyler Jope, who I pulled on as a writer, offered to come on as a co-editor, which was a godsend because at that point the work was just becoming so, just like the huge amount of work, and even just the two of us working together, every day for over a year after 7 years of working on the book. I'm trying to give this timeline in a sensible way. So we started in like 2014, 15. I brought in like 4 writers at the time, jump forward to pre-pandemic, and now the list has exploded to almost 1,000 titles. So Tyler recommends another writer, and I bring in Molly Haneri, and I bring in Calpurnia, and then it's just sort of a race to the finish over the next couple of years. So basically, it was 9 years until this week to get it done.
That has to feel so satisfying.
It sure does.
That, like, you were able to release something like that. So, and I mean, where, I'm assuming all the standard platforms, but like, where are the key places that you would want fans to order this from? Is there like a specific site you prefer that they go to?
Well, right now Amazon is like doesn't have it. I just went and looked, and then they're like, it's $99, and I'm like, the book is expensive, but it's not $99. So I would go to the McFarland website. They're the publisher. They're an academic publisher, but they publish a ton of like pop culture, encyclopedias or just like examinations, things like that. Now, I will say this: it is not a cheap book. It's $75 full price. That's because they're an academic publisher. So my advice is to sign up for their mailing list when you go on the website, and I think they offer you right then and there, your first purchase, you get a discount. Also, they send out like newsletters that have discounts, like everything on the website. You like look for the sales, and when it gets back onto Amazon, as much as we don't love to, support evil empires, they do have free shipping and they do have sales quite a bit. So like look for a deal for this book.
I think for fans, queer fans specifically, I think something like this is going to be such a wonderful tool. Like, I mean, I don't think you really, I mean, you could put a price on it, but like, I think I would pay a pretty penny
Right.
for something like this. Like you said earlier, Troy, like if I would have had this, or one of you had said this, if I would have had a tool like this when I was 15, 16, 17, I mean, God, I would have known so many things so much faster. Like I would have learned so much because horror has been such a pivotal tool in my life. And like I said, like a shield in a lot of ways. And it really thickened my skin and helped me become the gay man I am today. So, thank you for what you're doing. Like genuinely, I am blown away by what you put into this project. And, Gay of the Dead, I very much appreciate you involving me. And I was so flattered. And I did just join your Patreon and had the chance to preview my chapter, which I was like, oh my God, I was like, I feel so fancy. Like, oh, like it's so legit. I just seriously though, like it's really clear, like the quality and the craftsmanship you're putting into this work. I appreciate it as just a fan of the genre. It is so badass what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. I think that I'm 58 years old, right? And we are in a time where, literally they're making laws that take books with our stories off shelves, right? Like they're canceling plays because they have gay characters in them in certain parts of the country. And my feeling is that we need to make that as hard for them as possible, right? And so that drives me to do this. Like that's why I've just, and of course I love the genre and I love talking to people. So it's not like it's a chore, but the reason why I've become so laser focused on like queer horror is because, if they take all the books off the shelves, then we disappear. And I can't sit by and just let that happen. So, it's like, it's the most satisfying work, honestly, that I've ever done. But I also feel like, all of us, it's unfair that we have to do this labor, but all of us, where we can, need to make sure that our legacies remain, like that they last the test of time. And the way to really do that is through art, right? It's through film and books and things like that, because, societies fall, governments crumble, civilizations disappear, but like we're still reading work from the ancient Greeks, right? So anytime that we can codify our stories and experiences in some form of art, I think it's just an investment in the future of our community.
I think that's why they want to burn the books. That's why they want to ruin the art, because they know that is what will preserve the those stories. It'll ensure that is translated from generation to generation, and that's exactly the motivation behind all of this, really just sick vitriol that we're seeing right now. And I love seeing gays fighting back. And when I say aggressively gay, like this is exactly what I mean. Unabashedly gay without care or shame. You are aggressively gay. The movie we're covering today is aggressively gay. And I fucking love that about all of it. So let's get ready for a big old gay episode of Dark Night of the Podcast, my fellow homosexuals. This is going to be awesome. You picked the title today. Troy and I wish we could claim it, but you know what? Special occasions, like I said earlier. Announce it. What is your choice?
My choice for this episode is a movie that I actually, it was brought to my attention by Guinevere Turner, who of course wrote American Psycho, when she was on a panel, on my gay horror panel, Comic-Con, when I asked everybody, tell me your favorite, gay horror. And she's like, well, I think Cruising is gay horror. And it was the first time I'd ever had that film put into that context for me. And ever since then, I've like evangelized about this film. And I'm obviously not the only one. It's having a bit of a renaissance these days, which I'm very happy about. But yes, Cruising. William Friedkin's
Cruising, which is exactly what Troy will be doing this weekend. Cruising the streets of Vegas. And I am thrilled for you. But we're not talking about Troy's escapades, though I'm sure our fans
I'd
wish
love
we were.
to.
We are talking about the Al Pacino starring feature film Cruising. What a great fucking choice indeed. And Troy, you've been wanting to discuss this film for a while, and I'm curious, what about this film had you so excited to talk about it?
That it's fucking gay. I mean, really, no. I won't say. I'll put it out there right now. I won't say that I like love this film. I think there are issues with it that I'll get to as we go through the review. Mainly, it's been on my list because again, I'm not exaggerating. We started a gay horror podcast. I thought this has to be a quintessential film that we talk about at some point. Secondly, I hadn't seen this for so long. We're talking probably 30 plus years. I saw this like as maybe like a 15, 16-year old, maybe even younger. And I did not remember much about it besides one particular scene that really stuck out to me for being like graphic and just one that I remembered. So I really, really, really wanted to revisit this film, knowing that it came out in 1980. Knowing that a lot of films with queer representation that came out during that time period are now being revisited with vitriol, or being looked at in a different lens now, a modern day lens of, oh well, that's offensive now, so we better try to censor it or try to do whatever. So I was really curious to look at this film and re-examine it, being a gay man now that has gone through my life, have had 30 years of plus of experience since seeing this film, just to see what is the fuss about? What was the fuss about? Because I know this film, when it came out, caused a lot of controversy, particularly among the gay community, who boycotted it and did whatever they could to prevent it from being made. But also, like, 1980, you have an A-list Oscar-winning actor, Al Pacino, and a Oscar-winning director, William Friedkin, from The Exorcist, French Connection, who unabashedly decide to do this blatantly gay film. That was a kind of a landmark thing. So I really wanted to revisit it.
It's interesting because you really have to think about what the motivation was behind this film, right? Like, William Friedkin wasn't making gay indies to play at midnight in an art house. He was making studio movies, right? So it was his thoughts, and he didn't, he had to be convinced to do this film. He didn't just immediately jump on it when it was sort of offered to him the first time, but eventually he got on board. And he thought that every theater in the country should play this movie, and that anybody that was old enough to see an R-rated movie would want to see this movie, which is like mainstream audiences. And so I can't speak for him, but I feel like, if you see the film now, he threw everything behind it. It is technically really well made. It's a fairly accurate portrayal of gay life at the time, with some, carve outs for like some tone deaf stuff in there, which obviously I think we'll probably talk about. Um, but yeah, the expectations were that this was a wide release movie. So that to me is interesting. Just to sort of wonder what he was thinking at the time when he put it together. And that, Richard Gere was in the mix at one point to play the role, and really wanted to do it. And Al Pacino, obviously ended up in it. Karen Allen, who was like doing really well as a female lead, Paul Sorvino. Yeah, it was, this wasn't a movie that was made on the cheap, and it wasn't made like super independent, and it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like this was like, had the full force of Hollywood behind it, which I think says something about the time, I guess.
I think that, like, I mean, it's really known about this film that there are lots of people who have issue with it, and like you had mentioned, Troy, like, specifically during that time period, obviously the queer community took a lot of offense to it, but like, and I'm sure this is me now looking back as a gay man in 2024, but I don't think that there's really a way to tell any horror story where you're going to focus on a killer and not have the killer look like a negative force in the film. And this just so happened to be telling a story focusing on the queer community. So while you have a character here who is struggling with his own personal demons and queer, and obviously that is a massive playing factor into why he's doing what he's doing, like, I mean, if you're going to throw this in like any minority group, it's going to play into like what's going on within the culture at that time. And it just kind of like makes sense to me. I don't find anything. I don't watch this movie and find anything about it offensive at all. And I'm just going to say that right now. In today's age, watching this movie, I don't have a single moment in this movie that I look at and go, oh, ooh. And we've talked about Dress to Kill, and we've talked about Sleepaway Camp, and we've talked about all these films that have these taboo elements, and I can see it. Like, there's things that I'm like, okay, like I personally am not offended by these films, but like I get it to a certain extent. But this movie, while it's exaggerated, I'm blown away looking at just the scope of in which they dive into the queer community. Like, you are in the leather fetish kink community, and boy, do you see it, all of it. And they don't shy away with the sexuality. I mean, the asses in this movie look great, and there's a lot of them, but like it's all over the place. It's nothing but gay. And then you have this whole internalized struggle that isn't really stated, but it is very heavily implied that the focal character is, by being exposed to this community, very much questioning his own masculinity and preferences. And I think that's something that, looking at this now, like, to me, I'm like, well, that's obvious. But at that time, I'm sure that was really ballsy. They had a lot of cojones to attempt this. So I personally do not take any offense from this. I'm curious to hear from people who do, because I think that's a great conversation to have. I think it will open a lot of, open my eyes to maybe what some people struggle with this movie. But personally, I watch this movie. I find it extremely entertaining. I think it's fantastic. I really love this film. You don't really get the offense factor maybe up until the finale, like what the conclusion is. So that's something I want to take away from this conversation with you guys.
Well, I think we have to keep in mind as well, or people have to keep in mind that want to be offended by the negative representation of a gay man as a killer, that this is based on a true story. It's not just something, Friedkin or his screenwriter came up with off the top. Oh, let's make a gay man a serial killer. There were actual serial killings in New York City in the 70s that a serial killer was luring men from gay bars and killing them. That's a fact. It also happened in San Francisco with the serial killer, the Doodler, who was doing the same thing, going into bars in San Francisco, luring men out by with a threat of, or not a threat, with a promise of doodling a sketch of them. Hey, can I doodle a sketch of you? And then he would stab them to death in the park. I mean, this was really happening. So for Friedkin to want to get into that grittiness of what was going on during this time and really represent it accurately, I give him a lot of kudos. There's an interview I watched with him, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, on YouTube, about the making of this film. And initially he did not want to do the film because he thought the novel was too sanitized. The novel sanitized the atmosphere of the leather clubs during that time period, and he only wanted to do the film if he could really show the grittiness, the dirtiness, the sexuality that was prevalent in these clubs. That's the only way he would do the film. And when finally he was able to do that, they gave him the creative freedom to do that, is when he was like, okay, yes, I will do this film. But I think you make a good point as well, Roger, because I know that some people might think that, because we'll talk about it, we're going to get into the film here, but like with Al Pacino's character, there is a very blatant, you're right, several moments where it seems like he is questioning his sexuality, and where I can see where people might be like, oh, that's just feeding into the stereotype that if you're around gay people, you're going to be gay yourself. That's what we hear. We just talked about it opening this episode about people wanting to remove books from libraries because, oh, if my kid reads a gay book, he's going to be gay. I think it's kind of the same, maybe mentality some people that take offense to that aspect of the film may give, that, oh, it's portraying that if you're around gay people, you're going to be gay yourself. Personally, I think Al Pacino's character seems gay from the start. That's just me.
I agree with that. If you watch his first scene with Paul Sorvino says, "Have you ever gotten your dick sucked by a man?" And you'll note that through the whole conversation, Al Pacino never says no. Never says no.
He never says no. He says, "Oh, I think you're joking." No, I think you're joking with. And the way he just responds to it, I thought, okay, yeah, you've gotten your dick sucked by plenty of men, Al Pacino.
I look at this film like, I know why we were supposed to be mad at it, and I would never say you shouldn't have been mad at this movie, because back when it came out, William Friedkin didn't feel like he was under pressure to create anything other than the film that he wanted. He didn't, I'm assuming, didn't feel like he had to be part of like the gay reclamation project where he had to make a movie where like gay people were all virtuous or sanitized or whatever. He wanted to make this movie the way he wanted to make it, and he made it quite brilliantly. But in the context of the time, of course, the same thing with Basic Instinct, right? Like in the context of the time, if you are starved for representation and what you're getting is what feels like poison, of course you're going to be mad at it. But now, the film is preserved in amber, but our viewing experience isn't, because every minute that we're alive, our experience is going to be different and the context is going to be different. So I think it is to our benefit to look at these films like this film, Basic Instinct, Sleepaway Camp, and pull them forward. Like we have so many films that have expiration dates that we have to put over here, and it's not bad that we love them. It's not that bad that we did love them, but we just sort of have to acknowledge that maybe they're problematic. But I think with this film, it's important that we pull it forward and we dust it off and look at it on its merits. And because we need as much of this content as possible. And I just think the way the film is made if we're looking at it with our eyeballs now, that yes, it's not a perfect film, but it's also really great and deserves, its place in our queer horror canon.
I appreciate what Friedkin did. The one thing I would always wonder is how the film would have turned out maybe differently in the hands of a queer director. Not to say that I don't think Friedkin does a great job with the film, and again, for being a straight man, he sure doesn't hinder showing the asses right in the camera and things like that. But I just always wonder, well, how would the film maybe turn out if it was in the hands of a queer director? But I mean, the film starts, we're thrown right into the main story when the film opens, because right away, this barge in the middle of the Hudson Bay, one of the workers on it sees this decayed arm floating in the water, and we sharp cut to the medical examiner's office with Captain Edelson, played by the fabulous Paul Sorvino, who's the father, Roger, of Mira Sorvino, who we got to at least walk by a couple times at the Houston Horror Film Festival a couple weeks ago.
She had some great fucking hats on.
Those hats.
I mean, we could do a full episode just on our hats, but today we're talking about cruising. And right from that title hitting, I mean, that title alone, there's something about it. There's something strangely erotic about it as it just slowly glides across the screen, and you're in for something intense. And yeah, you open and you're like, what am I looking at in the water? And you notice it's a decayed arm, and it is a gnarly decayed arm. It is clear within the first 5 minutes of this film that they are going to show some gruesome violence here and there, and they're going to do it well. And this is not something that's really holding back in any way, whether it be the sexuality or the brutality. And you don't get a ton of kills in this film, but when you do get it, it's pretty fucking intense. But opening on this moment here with this whole discovery of yet another body part, and you start to realize this is an ongoing problem for these detectives, and this is where that story starts.
I think to this film's credit, the police are invested in solving this crime. All throughout, they're invested in solving the crime for various reasons. They have different motivations, but they never back off of it. So I think that's actually a plus for this film. That first actual murder that we see, I hate to jump, I mean, if I'm jumping too far, please tell me, but I rewatched it, before our conversation. All I could think about was Dario Argento, right? The Italian horror influence on all the murders in this film. It's shot so well. It is so disturbing in a way that a horror movie should be, right? It's just stylish, and it just languidly plays out, and there's no soundtrack to tell you how you're supposed to feel, and it is shocking. Yeah, I'm such a fan of that opening. It's not the opening murder, but that first murder.
That's that one I said. That's the one scene that stuck with me. That's it, because it is so shockingly just heartless and brutal. And you think about gay men being gay men ourselves and whatnot. I'm sure we've all put ourselves in situations that are very similar to what this guy did. And it really stops and makes you think, oh my gosh, how many times have I have I put myself in a situation where this could have happened to me? Going into a random stranger's apartment or a room to meet him in a motel room for a hookup, somebody you meet online or at a bar, and you go back. I mean, gay men are constantly putting themselves in this situation, even today with like the apps, and there have been men that have been lured off the apps and murdered. So it just kind of hit home to me. I was like, wow. I mean, you need how vulnerable you are in that certain situation. But before we get to that scene, I just have to say, so yes, we find out that there's a serial killer, or they suspect there's a serial killer working in New York in the gay community, and Chief Sorvino's character Edelson needs to solve it. All these random body parts are just floating up, and he also knows that in recent weeks, a couple of gay men have been stabbed from bars. Now we cut to the scene with the two cops in this cop car cruising. I love the double entendre of the title too. Cruising cops cruising, looking for whatever, but also gay men cruising. I love that kind of double meaning there. But these two cops, right away, I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, they're the one's Joe Spinelli from Maniac.
Maniac,
yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna kill that bitch, I'm gonna teach her. And they're like, oh yeah, they're dirtbag. I mean, they're just vitriol towards women. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's quite just really a jarring scene to hear these two cops just unleash their hate on women and call them all dirtbags, and she's gonna pay for that. And it's very ominous.
There's an element of tension, and I mean, there's always an element of tension. We're a horror movie podcast, but there's a superb element of tension that this film masters from right off the bat. And it's not just in like the developing tension in the moments of like fear or horror. It's just this element of tension that exists between the characters. Like there's all of these layers to what's going on. Like you mentioned, like Sorvino's character, he's under the pressure that he has to solve these murders, and it's really coming down on him. Pacino, you realize that he has this pressure that he has to perform in this job that he's given. All of these different subplots that are coming together, they're just this great simmering discomfort between all of these characters, and it comes through in the confrontations and the dialogues, even in this morgue sequence where the doctor and the detective basically have this argument where they're butting heads over how to write off these bodies, and like how do you label it? We don't know. We keep having these bodies turn up, but we have no way to identify how they're dying. So like right off the bat, there is just this level of, like I said, tension and discomfort that does this film a lot of favors, I feel. But as you get into this moment with these two cops, yes, Troy, you're absolutely right. They're just talking like this, just disgusting, macho, masculine dialogue. And then lo and behold, you've got these two cops pulling over and picking up these two call girls, these two, beautiful trans women whom they put into a very uncomfortable situation and basically force them to perform oral sex on them. And what I find really interesting about this moment being so early in the film is that while you do have these two trans prostitutes, it really doesn't dehumanize them. It more focuses on the cops and what they're doing and how shitty they're being and putting these two poor gals through it. Like, if I found that really interesting, and in a way almost like saying, like, we're making it clear here, like we're not out to paint the queer community any specific way. We're talking about humanity at play. There's negative elements in all genres of people, and there are good elements too, and I think that they're treating the characters here very quite fairly, and I thought it was just a really interesting choice to open with that being the opening note of these two poor girls getting put in this shitty situation by these two cops.
Yeah. And I will say one of the false notes for me in the film is how those characters are costumed, because they look like they're treated with respect throughout the film, but they look like a straight guy's idea of what, and I want to say trans women, but I think at the time it's more cross-dressery, if that makes sense. Like, they don't ping to me. I mean, in retrospect, they ping as trans women, but I think at the time they were just supposed to be like, gay guys also like to wear women's clothing, and like if they're sex workers, they're going to dress up like women. So that is one of the sort of stumbles of this film, where he gets so much right, like the club scenes, the bar scenes, and everything, and just like the you talk about the characters like that are also like butting heads and sort of like grinding against each other, and yet all the scenes with all the gay men, everybody's having a great time, which I think is great. Like, they're in the bar having a good time, they're having fun cruising, what have you. But yeah, so that is just sort of the one little moment where every time those two characters pop up, I just like, oh gosh, if he'd only had like a gay consultant or something that could have like pointed him in the right direction with those two.
Instead of casting like intentionally two linebackers and then putting them in like
Right.
these absurd wigs. It looks like Troy and I, like trying to throw on wigs and going out there. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that there is a certain element of maybe a lack of understanding or exposure to something that at least we as gay men now, I think, have learned our lessons with the trans community, in the sense that that something like that would not sit well today. And we would call that out. Like, I mean, at least for those of us who are there for our trans brothers and sisters and others, that something like that would not go over well. But I do think that in the way that you're right, that the way that they treat these characters, it doesn't feel like a stereotype. It doesn't feel, in the way that they interact with them, it actually feels like, you're right, they're given a level of respect that a lot of movies I see featuring characters like this don't think to do. So I do appreciate that aspect.
Yeah. And they're important to the story. Like, they're not, you don't just see them once and they go away. They're important. They're there throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean, the one has a very integral part in actually helping catch the killer.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, after this scene with these two poor broads being sexually assaulted by these police officers, second movie in a row, Roger, come on, we're having cops trying to assault poor blonde broads in the front seat of their car. But no, so now we cut to the nightclub, the first nightclub scene. The gentleman, this very hot man going into the bar. Oh, yeah, I mean, he is, but he goes into this club, and there is, I mean, again, for the first club scene, you are seeing like everything. The camera is not shying away from showing guys kissing, rubbing on each other, asses and jock straps shaking at the camera. I mean, it really is like a meat market for this man as he's walking through trying to find who he's going to choose as his the one that he wants to go home with. And it's like, I mean, God, just for the first club scene, I gotta say they really, I think, captured the vibe, and probably because it really was a gay club that they were in filming. So
yeah, and they're all like, the weird thing about the gay community, not the weird thing, the interesting thing about the gay community protesting the filming of this movie is that all those extras are gay men. Like, they're all were recruited by production to be part of the film, which, a less diligent filmmaker might not do. So it really rings true. I love that shot in this scene where it's literally just pans across, I think it's like 5 different butts in jock straps. And again, back to my point about this movie was supposed to go into every movie theater in the country, and like straight couples for their movie night, we're going to go see the movie about gay murder, and like, here we go, here's the butts, ladies and gentlemen.
One thing I find really interesting, and I just kind of building off what you're saying about the fact the extras are gay, and it's obvious. It's very obvious. It's 1980. There is a certain look to a lot of these men's that I think that, now looking back, almost gives this film a haunting element, in that you do see that element of the HIV/AIDS epidemic starting to come out, and you see it in these men, you see it in their faces, you see it in their bodies. And for me as an HIV positive man, like watching something like this, I think that it grounds you. It's something that like it's humbling in a way, because they dive so deep into that world, and it's splattered all over the screen. You can't look away from it, and it is very sexualized. But you're seeing these interactions between these men, but it is kind of everywhere, in every corner of that world. And I did, that was something that I noted several times over the course of this film. Every club scene, you get that, you recognize that, you can't avoid noting that.
Well, that, and the other side of that coin is that, gay cancer in the headlines hadn't really happened yet. And so I was watching it and feeling very nostalgic for because this is like that sliver of time, right? Like, gay rights was becoming an actual political movement at the time, and and these men were living, like the hard fought victories of like sexual freedom and, being in a place in New York where you could be on the streets and hold hands and not get assaulted because it was like your area that you created. And so there's like, it's a weird thing to be watching this movie about gay murder and just have this like warm, fuzzy feeling watching these bar scenes and the cruising outside and just thinking, oh, what could have been, right? Like what could have been. Which is, I don't know. It's I don't know if there's much more to that point that I'm making, but I did find myself having a smile on my face as they're like panning through these bars.
It does glamorize it in a way. Like, strangely enough, as much as, as many issues at that time period that they may have had with how sexualized and how it portrayed gay men. I mean, I'm sorry, like, if I was a gal walking into that movie, I'd be like, oh Lord, I'd like, I'll go back for seconds. Like, like at that time, you just didn't get anything that sexual in general. So to have something that aggressively sexual, I don't care if it's gay or otherwise, I mean, they did not shy away from it. And it's just so bold. Today, by today's standards, it would still be bold and shocking. So yeah, that is one of the most prominent, when you get that slider shot past the asses, like, you're like, oh fuck, they are not shying away from it. And I think it's one of the best aspects of the movie.
And they don't really shy away with the kind of the sexual aspect between like characters either. I don't think. I mean, I think they push it maybe as far as they could for the time, but like, for example, this first encounter we get where this handsome man walking through this bar finally lands on his choice for the evening, and he goes up to him to make small talk, and this guy is like stunning, and he says to this guy, oh, right away, like, gets in his face like, I don't like cigarettes. I mean, his approach is a little, harsh, but it gets the job done, because the guy that's smoking the cigarettes, who has this very weird voice, like, I'm sorry, the voice would have turned me off. I would have been like, yes, okay, sorry, I have to go. Yeah, I have to go now. I have an appointment, because that voice is so creepy. How do these men not think this voice is creepy? Like, it is creepy. And so, but he agrees to go back to this like shady, sleazy motel. It gave me Basket Case vibes, Roger, this motel that they go to. And I mean, they don't show like intercourse, but they get very like intimate with the man in his jockstrap. We see his ass. We see the man in the sunglasses in the room smoking. There's this moment, a lot of boot play that I thought was really clever, where we see like their boots kind of knocking, literally, and they get in bed, and the one wakes up to rumbling, and he sees that the man he's with is like rumbling through the drawers, and he asks him, what are you doing? I'm just looking for cigarettes. And why are you scared? And there's this whole moment, and the tension starts to really build to the moment where the man in bed is like, well, I don't know, should I be scared? And we see that first image of that steak knife being pulled out of the boot. And I mean, this moment is pretty heart wrenching, I think, because this man, I mean, you can read the fear in his face. He's told to roll over on his stomach. Again, I'm not victim blaming or anything, but I would have at least tried to fight. You're in a motel, for God's sake. Get up and like start screaming. Somebody's gonna hear you. But he obeys. He rolls over, and it's even like more like spine chilling, because he's like, what are you gonna do to me? And the man says in that voice, I know what I gotta do. And then he starts that song, I'm here, you're here. And he begins to like hogtie the poor man. And like, there is no, what I really like about this scene, and I hate to use that word like, but I think what's really effective about this scene is like, there's no like build up really to the stabbing. There's no hesitation. There's no like pleading for his life. You literally see the knife kind of raise, and you think that's where it's going to go. You think the guy's going to start taunting him, but instead he just shoves that fucking knife in, and it is brutal. We see the man's face, his blood is pouring. I mean, this is the death scene or the scene from this film that really stuck with me. It's not overly like gory or whatnot, but it's just brutal and heartless.
And something that's really effective that he does is he lets us get to know the victim, right? Like that actor who's so good in this gets a lot of screen time, so we know who this guy is. And then, as I said before, with that scene, there's that moment where he's hog tying him and he says, "I don't want this to be too tight for you," as he's tying him up right before he murders him. And how slowly it plays out. And it's funny when you talk about fighting back, because I watch this scene and I think, what would I do though? Like, he's got the knife out. Like, I would be calculating in my head, like, okay, if I jump up, he'll stab me immediately. If I do what he says, maybe I have a chance. But then of course he hog ties him like it's all over. And the creepiest line of the film, "You made me do this," which is, as he stabs him, is the line that I've remembered all these years. "You made me do this." And I wonder, when we're putting check marks in the negative column, this guy's an actor. He lives in this shitty motel. He's like, "Do you think I'm going to rob you?" And the guy's like, "I don't have anything for you to steal." And there's a lot of joy among the gay men in this film that aren't being murdered. But there's also some moments of like, and to Friedkin's credit, which we'll get to, there's all different types of gay men that get murdered from all sort of, social, financial strata. But there's, I think, more than its fair share of sort of desperate, sad, lonely gay men that are represented in this film. And I think this guy, this character that gets murdered in this is one of those. So if I were to give this any demerits, it would be that.
This man has an amazing ass. I just need to circle back to this. One of the best we've seen in a movie to date, and I'm going to celebrate that. But that being said, I think one thing that I find so impressive about this film is it so delicately straddles that line that exists between sensuality, sexual pleasure, and fear. And when you think about it, like, that is a very fine line. Oftentimes, those sensations can carry over. That's why a lot of kinks play certain ways. That's why people like to be blindfolded, tied up, So as this whole sequence is unfolding, and the things that he is doing to him with this blade, I know dudes that like knife play. I know dudes that like to be hogtied. I know dudes that like all these things. I almost feel there are certain points while this guy is scared, he's like, is this guy going to kill me? Or is this just some weird kink play? Is this what this dude is fucking into? As he's flicking his nipple with the fucking tip of the knife, there is still a sensual element to it as he's breathing on his neck and everything, that when he does finally go to stab him, it does feel almost shocking. Even though it's building up to it, it's still handled in such a sexual manner. Seeing this beautiful man's nude body tied up and arch of his back, that apple ass just popped out. Like, they make it so sexual, and then it suddenly becomes so brutal. And when it becomes brutal, you see it, and they don't cut away from it. They don't shy away from it. And I just think it's such a great balance of both of those worlds: the sensuality, the sexuality, and the fear. They do a great job of delivering what is a phenomenal first skill in this movie.
What's weird is they use that actor's real actor headshot later on in the film, because that character is an actor, right? And so they use that actor's real headshot on the bulletin board, and that just brings kind of a weird, I don't know, verite to the film.
Well, and I also find kind of what's something jarring is the hard cut from the stabbing to the body on the medical examiner's table with the stab wounds in it. I thought, oh, that's pretty harsh. It just cuts, and you see him laying on the gurney, and his back is all full of stab wounds. And again, Sorvino's there, Edelson is there, and he's being told that the body had semen in the anus. However, whoever was the contributor of the semen is shooting blanks, because there's actually no sperm cells. There's no sperm in it. So there's something right there that's revealed, although it's never really elaborated on or never really comes back into play much with anything. But also, it's kind of the first indication that this certain type of knife is being used, because the wounds have that serrated, you can tell that a serrated knife is being used. So you're getting a few little clues here along the way that I do like that are being dropped. I think also you need to know that a lot of the characters, and I know it's I know this was done on purpose, but it's also, I think, quite interesting. So many of the characters look exactly the same. So like it's really, I think it's done on purpose because it's like really hard to tell which character is which. When the character is the killer, he's wearing, you know, like a police hat, dark sunglasses, kind of disguise, but he looks like so many people that we've already seen that it's like, oh my god, who is this? Who is it? Really this person? Is it this person? It even looks like Al Pacino in time. I mean, it's quite interesting and very smart. Yeah, very smart.
Doppelgangers. Yeah. Oh, you know what we forgot to talk about? Important. The hardcore inserts in the murder scene. The flash frames of gay porn where a dick is going into a butt as he's getting stabbed. I did a rewatch, and I think I'm watching the 2019 version. And if you frame by frame, you get those like hardcore inserts. Every time he stabs him, they cut to, you know, somebody getting a close up of somebody getting fucked, penetrated anally. Yeah.
And this is one big thing, and I'm sure we'll delve into this a little bit more, but like one thing known about this film is it was like significantly cut down. Like 40 minutes was cut from this movie, which I can't even imagine. But like, and I most of the material that was cut was further, like more eroticism and further exploration of what is the character of Steve diving into the queer scene and just what he's seeing. And I can't even imagine where else they were going to take it. So these like these porn images, yeah, like you mentioned, these frames, like there are moments all throughout the film that if you'll catch them, little shots, you know, they'll have filters over them or be distorted, but it's definitely fucking porn.
He also had to find them. Like he had to watch some gay porn to find the perfect shot of a penis going into a rectum.
Troy and I are used to that. We have a straight editor who has worked on both of our movies. And at this point, this guy's like, I'm so used to seeing men's dicks and assholes that I'm numb to it. And I'm like, good. Like, I'm happy we got you.
Absolutely. Can't wait. So yeah, so we now also in the police station at this time is the one of the gals from earlier that was assaulted in the police car. Looking a little bit more masculine this time. She doesn't have her wig on or anything like that, but still has the makeup on. Basically, this scene serves two purposes. She's looking through a photo book, you know, seeing if she recognizes any of these people that are in this police photo lineup book. But also she wants to tell Edelson that she was harassed by these two cops and the one forced her to give him a blowjob. Edelson doesn't believe her at all, but she gives a name. She thinks, I think it's DeSimone. He works in the 6th Ward. He doesn't believe her and he throws her out. It may seem insignificant, but it does come back into play at the end of the film, which I do appreciate.
Do you actually think he didn't believe her? Or do you think that he was like, you know, we're just not going to deal with this right now. Like, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of being right, even though I know you're right.
I think maybe I'm based on his reaction at the end of the film when he does see DeSimone. I think maybe there was a part of it that didn't believe her, that just thought she was bullshitting.
Right.
Because when he does see this person and realize, oh wow, you're DeSimone. Okay, she was right. Yeah. And now we get our introduction to Steve Burns, played by Al Pacino, who is a young cop who Edelson calls him into his office. And we discussed this earlier. The very first question he asks, have you ever had your dick sucked by a guy? Have you ever been porked? Have you ever had your pulse smoked by a man?
I wish it could be that casual these days. I mean, my interviews would go so much better on like job sites and so forth. But like, you know, I don't find Pacino attractive, but this film, there's something about this film that does it for me. Probably because he's just in all these very gay situations. I'm guessing that must be what it is. But like from the moment he comes in, when he asks him, you ever have a guy suck your dick? And just his reaction where he's like, oh, you're joking, right? Like I was like, oh, you're like kind of charming. Like, I don't know, there's something about him right off the bat that I really like the character. I'm a big fan of him in this role. I think he brings a lot of layers to him, and we will see those progressively get pulled back more and more. But there's a likability factor to him, And this interaction, this moment here between the two of them is fantastic. You got two great actors delivering some rather shocking dialogue, but making it palatable, and I think almost with a chuckle. And I really like this little moment between them. I like the relationship that they share. They don't have a ton of scenes together over the great scheme of things, but they have several key moments together, and it's this building, developing relationship and frustration with each other that is really important to the storyline as it progresses.
He also, again, this is the beginning of the police chief caring about these murders, right? Like, this is before he has the scene that may talk about later where, like, I don't know what that character would be, but who was like, oh, is it the mayor? I can't remember, but it was like, finish this. Like, this is before that. Like, he just like sees these murders and he's a good cop. And so these has to be, they have to be solved. Which is a nice change from how we've been often treated in films.
Basically, what Edelson tells him asks him, "Do you want to go undercover because you look like the victims?" Which she does. I mean, all the victims. I mean, some of them are a little bit more attractive, but they all have dark hair, Italian features. They all look very similar. Okay, and he tells him, this isn't like going into. You're not just going to be like going into gay clubs. I need you to go into like the leather, more extreme clubs. You're going to like immerse yourself in this. You're going to, you'll be put up in an apartment. You'll be paid once a month. You can't tell anybody what you're doing. No badge, no gun, no nothing. Steve Burns, the character, agrees quite. There's really no hesitation. And again, I think it comes into play about like, people maybe have an issue with Pacino seeming to struggle with the sexuality throughout the film, but I think this right here illustrates, to me at least, that I think he was struggling with the sexuality way before any of these events happened, because he agreed to do this a little bit too too easily. No consideration. No, hey, can I think about it? Hey, I really got to talk. I really got to think about this because I have a girlfriend at home. Poor Karen Allen, her ass that doesn't really get much to do in this film. She's home. I need to really think about this. No, he's like, oh, sounds great. And I get like it's supposed to be because he thinks it's going to help him get promoted. But again, I think most straight men would be like, I need to think about this.
Most straight men in 1980 would be like, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
But the actual line is, so the chief says, so what do you think? And Steve says, I love it. I mean, he says, I love it. Like, I think there's a reason he says, I think there is a double entendre there. Right away, I think there's a hint that's being dropped that he loves a lot of things. And a lot of things about it. He thinks it's going to be great. And just going and being a gay man, masquerading as a gay man. This guy's doing his fucking home. Like, he is going out there and getting into this world. And you start to see that like right away. Like, because as soon as he agrees,
he's out there.
This whole thing's moving. Like, he's out there.
He's moving into an apartment. But I want to build off of what you said, Roger, about him saying I love it, and you think there might be a lot of things he loves, because let's not forget the scene before he moves in the apartment. We do get the first scene with him in bed with his girlfriend Nancy, played by the lovely Karen Allen, where she's asking him, what are you doing? What is this assignment? He's like, I cannot tell you. Please stop asking me. And she says something like, oh God, what? I guess I don't get to know everything about you. And he's like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things you don't know about me. And she says, like what? And he doesn't answer her. And then it cuts to him moving into this apartment. Again, little subtle things that I think really lend to the idea that he might have, attraction to men already.
Oh, it's all over the place. I think there are so many moments in this film, even glances, looks that he gives. I think it's very intentional. And I got to say, there are three men in this conversation with varying styles of beard, but there is no more beautiful a beard than Nancy Allen in the movie. She's definitely married to a man who is questioning his sexuality.
I don't want to jump ahead, but that moment where he's fucking the shit out of her aggressively after getting turned on at the gay bar, I'm like, okay, come on. This poor woman. She knows she's never got banged that hard before. She has to know something's going on. Come on.
Well, and then that shot of his face in another scene where he's laying in bed and it's just
she goes down on him, yeah,
watering. Yeah, I think if we're generous with like our analysis of this character, I think we could say that he is, closeted gay guy. Maybe that's why Paul, he's a uniform. Paul Sorvino, Like he's not a detective, he's a uniform. So somehow word got to Paul Sorvino that this would be the dude for this job. So yeah, I think it's all there. When he moves into the apartment and there's all the Honcho and Mandate magazines, like he doesn't react with disgust. He sort of flips through them before he throws them all away. But then he does throw them all away, which makes me think that that's the guilty part, right? Like he could keep them in, in his apartment where nobody else is, but he gets rid of them. So I look at that as more like a struggle than like him not being a gay guy in that moment.
He moves into this apartment, what I'm assuming is in the West Village. It's right in the center of all the gay New York action during that time. And yeah, he meets. He finds those magazines. I'm like, somebody moved out and took all their furniture, took everything out, but they just left a huge box of Honcho porn male magazines. But he takes them out of his apartment to throw them out. But he's. Did you notice he's like just like throwing them in a trash can that's in like the common hallway? I'm like, children could walk by and find those. Like, this is just like, but he does meet another character in this scene, Ted Bailey, played by Dan Scardino, who 80 slasher fans will recognize as the male lead in He Knows You're Alone.
The worst titled slasher film of all time. He Knows You're Alone. He's like, what was the sequel gonna be? He still knows you're alone. Like he knows you're a loner.
We do have to cover He Knows You're Alone at some point, Roger. There's a lot of things about that film that I really like. The opening that basically Scream 2 copied. Got to talk about that.
Yeah, is that the one with the fish tank kill?
Yeah, the head in the fish tank. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen it with who plays the female lead in that with that big hair? It's somebody. Oh my god,
Tom Hanks.
It's Tom
Hanks. It's his first movie too.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in a hot minute. It wasn't great. Was not a very. Hey, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it soon.
I think one of the biggest fictions of cruising is the fact that there's a playwright who doesn't have to have a job, who is maybe making a living at it. Because I can tell you from experience that doesn't exist.
Oh, but this character of Ted is so endearing, and I think like what's really nice is to see this interaction between the two of them, because like pretty quickly they kind of they launch into a friendship, and it seems like a natural development, and the things that Ted's sharing with him, it's just very warm and flirtatious, but not like aggressively flirtatious. And it's nice to have a character like this who kind of becomes in a way like not his guide, but like a companion of his as he's trying to become immersed in this world. I like the character of Ted a lot. He's not utilized all that much. He's kind of like an undercurrent of the film, like he's a separate side story, but I do enjoy when he comes into play.
I do, and then I do appreciate the fact that they don't make him another like club hound. Like he doesn't go to the clubs. He tells Steve's, I don't do the clubs. He's like, I agree with that. I don't have any interest in that. I'd rather be home and be creative. I think that was really needed in this movie, to have it, to show, hey, look, if there are gay men that don't go in their jock straps to go to all these clubs, here's one that, I do appreciate that, but I do like the friendship that they form right away. Ted is so endearing, so outgoing. They go for coffee, they go for lunch, and their conversation just seems so natural. Ted does mention the fact that a Columbia professor was murdered in the neighborhood, and it's just also wholesome. I think that's a good word for it. And if in a film that's full of things that aren't wholesome, this relationship between Ted and Steve is wholesome, which really makes the ending very shocking.
And Ted also has like an element of humor that like this movie doesn't really have a lot of that. It's pretty dry overall. But like, I mean, he has a line. He literally says, "I don't eat seafood. I gotta watch myself or I blow up like Shelley Winters." And I said, that is a great fucking joke. A gay man definitely wrote that joke. Like there are a few like little one-liners he throws out that just add to his likability.
Yeah. I mean, he's taking the plot device role. So often gay men are a plot device, and he is sort of a plot device that pays off much further into the film. But like you say, we get to know who he is, and he has a life, and he's got other people in his life, and he's not a predator. He's not always on the make.
And he also looks so distinctly different from the core group of characters. So it's right away we know, okay, he's not the threat. He has red hair. He looks so much different than everybody else. So
yeah. He's nice and he doesn't have an agenda, which is nice.
So that evening, we cut to Burns going out for the first time. And boy, does he get an eyeful. But again, I don't ever think that this man seems like overly shocked about what he's seeing. Again, you would think that if he was, 100% straight, a lot of what was going on in front of him would shock him. He seems to be like at times enjoying it, like the way he's sucking his straw and drinking his drink as he's watching these men like make out and shake their asses. But again, we get more club scenes. We get him stopping into that shop to ask about the hankies, because when he's in the club, he does notice all these men have different colored hankies in their back pockets. So he says he's walking down the street. He stops in a shop and asks the shop owner what the hankies, what's the deal with the hankies? And the shop owner's like, oh yeah, those. If you have the light blue one in your left pocket, it means you want a blowjob. If it's in your right pocket, you're going to give a blowjob. If you have the yellow one, you want to be pissed on. I mean, it's pretty. He's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go home and think about it. And he leaves.
Oh, he thinks about it, but he selects a very specific color. I mean, he does. He picks up a
does.
yellow one.
I
And I
know.
was like, wow. I was like, oh my God, look at you just diving right in.
I
Oh.
think that's a thing that you can do where you don't have to touch another dude, right? Like of all the thing, you'll notice also they stop before they get to fisting. Like Powers Booth, who plays that store clerk, goes through all the colors. He goes, and red's for. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go. And so he picks the one where ostensibly you could like pee on somebody and not touch them, or be peed on and not get touched.
Well, he tells the guy here later that he just wants to watch. I just want to watch. I'm more into watching. But he goes. I love the names of these bars too. We got the Ramrod that he's in. There was a Ramrod where he's in there, and like there is a whole like 45-second moment where Pacino's standing there sipping his drink, and literally a parade of men walk by him, sizing him up and down like a piece of meat. It's
The titular activity.
oh, the days when that could have happened to me. Wow, those are long over.
It feels exhausting just watching it. Like I'm like 10 years ago, and absolutely now I'm like, oh my God, just seeing him getting ready. I'm like, Jesus Christ, doing his fucking eyebrows. There's that one shot of him drawing his eyebrows. I was like, look at you. You know just what you're doing, down to that yellow hanky. But it gets me mad when it comes down to that fucking yellow hanky. I get kind of pissed off because you get this rough looking gentleman, got a yellow hanky around his neck, and he sees Al Pacino and he says, Golden Rivers galore. I cannot wait to piss on this man. So he stands up and he saunters over to Al Pacino, and Al Pacino says to him with discomfort, he says, I like to watch. And this guy gets really shitty. He's like, take that out of your pocket. And I'm like, how dare you, sir? Like, how dare you judge any fellow kinkster for their preferences? I mean, if anything, I would extend an olive branch. I would say, understandable. I was like, and maybe we can work towards something. Get into my canoe, take an oar, and we'll take to the Golden Rivers together. And slowly but surely, Al Pacino, eventually I will piss on you. Let's be clear. I thought that was like kind of just wild that they went with you. Like, still, the fact that they even explored that, again, it's 1980. I was thrown off by that, but I love that aspect of it. I love the kink community in general. I love that these things still carry through to this day. Hanky code and everything. It feels so relevant. Like, even though this film is 1980, once you start to get into the kink of it all, you see how rooted this is in our community. Like, not a lot of that element has really changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My husband is a kinkster, and I can tell you, all you need to do is go into our closet and see the Ace Hardware tool caddy that I bought him for all of his equipment. And he certainly could have been the prop master on cruising.
We'll get him on the show. No.
I know, he should be here. He should be here.
Bust out all the hankies.
I know. I subject him to so many horror movies. I mean, he's a fan, small f, ... But like, I made him watch Terrifier the other day. Terrifier, yeah, just first one, Terrifier. He was like, what the fuck are you making me watch?
I can see that. I can see that reaction with the first Terrifier. So he gets shamed and he leaves the bar, and I just like that. I also like that it portrays like the cruising takes place like outside the bars as well, because we spend a lot of time in Central Park, which I guess was a big cruising spot at this time because the men are like lined up and down the trails. They're going into the woods to fuck. Pacino's there. He's under like this bridge, and this guy, and this is the cop from the beginning, right? This is Joe Spinelli.
It's Joe Spinell.
It's like watching him. I'm like, oh, dude, okay, interesting. And of course, Joe Spinell is not the most, he's kind of a creepy looking guy to begin with. Another guy walks by that's a little bit more, attractive, and Pacino follows him. Did you catch that? Okay, so here's the thing. Pacino follows him somewhere into the woods, but it cuts. We don't know what happened. Why would he follow him? What do you think? They went in the woods and he got a blowjob. I guarantee it.
There's this mythical 40 minutes that even Friedkin has said have been destroyed, so he can't even recreate them. That I don't know if he's gone on the books, but film historians assert that there's more footage that makes it seem like he goes for it eventually, like he is participating in sex with these men. So I think it's actually kind of perfect in this moment. Like, we don't want to get to it too quickly, right? So if you're putting in the audience's mind this question mark, like, what did they do? Yeah, I think is like a calculated like plot development. I think that's a like a delightful little need to know moment in the film. And it also sort of sets him up as possibly the killer, right? Like, there's that whole thing through the movie that maybe somehow he's the killer. And I think that's one of the moments where it kind of sets that up.
Well, and the movie ends on that note as well, which I'm sure we'll get to and have some thoughts on. But yeah, so the next day we see Burns going into this little dive bar, not a gay bar, but just this little dive bar to meet Ellison, to tell him that basically he's been getting really good information. He's gotten some names, and he gives him a particular name. He's heard like Tommy Mancuso, and Ellison's like, oh, you trying to tell me you don't know who Tommy the Joker is? I can't move on him. Chino's like, well, why not? I asked the questions, and then that's the scene. It's kind of like, could have been cut out. Doesn't really give us much, but I do like that, again, we do at least know that at this point, it does seem like Pacino or Burns, I'm going to call him by his character, the Burns is still very early on into this and thinking of it as a job. He's still checking in with his boss. It's not consumed him yet. It's not really changed his personality yet. He's still treating it as an assignment. He's checking in, giving information, even though it's not the greatest information. He's at least checking it. So I do like that, but
I think historically the mafia owned a lot of the gay bars during that time. So I think that's what that is referring to. And I only know that because I did research. That's not like something I, pulled out of that's just right there. Like,
that makes a lot of sense, and I've actually heard. I remember hearing that, so that does make sense. And I guess Tommy the Tiger, is that Tommy the Joker? That does sound like a kind of a mafia nickname. So now we cut to a crowd outside. I'm assuming they're outside the bar, or they're in the park, and the guys are just lined up. And again, it looks like a gay old time. These guys are having a blast.
Doesn't it look like fun? It looks like fun.
And just they're just hanging out and just being themselves, and the guy is like walking along, just eyeing these men up and down before he lands on the one with the dark glasses, the hat. We've seen this get up before. We know this probably isn't going to end well. He goes up and asks, do you want a drink? Do you want to go get a drink? And we hear that fucking creepy voice say, no, it's too late. There's a line, well, I'd invite you to my apartment. Where's your apartment? Greenwich. Oh, it's too far. Why don't we go into the woods? So they go into the woods, and this is beautifully shot, super creepy. Once they get into the woods, the guy in the sunglasses disappears, and you are getting really like just the lighting. You see glimpses of other men in the background making out. You hear them having sex. It's just all very lots going on in the background, disorienting. The man realizes, where'd you go, man? Don't play with me. Come on, don't play with me. And you hear him say, who's here? I'm here. You're here. That creepy little lullaby. And the man like gets deeper in the woods, and you hear that, where are you? I'm waiting for you. And all of a sudden, that fucking knife comes out of nowhere and stabs this man in the back. I really like this scene. I really like the build up. I think it's very beautiful. The color, the lighting, everything just is so giallo-esque. I mean, it's really a phenomenal scene.
It's interesting because it also puts this murder in the middle of a place where gay men are surrounding them. It's also, back then, the titular activity, cruising, like this is their community, this is their place, and it happens right in the middle of them. And, if there would be anything that would make me as a gay guy fear for my, life, would be hearing about people being murdered where I was, cruising and picking up men for sex. So I think it's very canny to put it in that specific location where just a few moments earlier we were seeing, gay men living their lives and having a good time.
I think it's worth noting that, like, I mean, at least in my opinion, I feel this way. Overall, there's not a bad kill in this movie. Like, if we're going to look at it from a horror angle, every single sequence is meticulously planned. It is done with intention. It's from the venues in which they're killed, the locations, whatever it may be, they're used to the very best of their advantage. This location specifically, the cat and mouse elements are played up so well. The way it's filmed, the audio, like you mentioned, the sounds of the men having sex in the background. You also have to think of the angle that, for me, as one of those men having sex, when I'm hearing this guy getting killed, what I'm hearing is probably, I'm thinking it's just the grunts of another guy getting railed. I'm not even going to put two and two together. This guy could be 5 feet from me on the other side of a tree, and I may not even know that this guy's getting fucking gutted right beside me in this park. And so it does add this really uncomfortable, close to home aspect that, any of us who have lived that way, and I've definitely lived that, I had that chapter of my life where I was getting fucked in fucking like public parks and doing stupid shit, and, like at 1 a.m. in the morning, like doing stupid things. And, I could have easily been that guy. I could have been gutted in the middle of a fucking forest and found the next day, and then that's that, and so the way it's handled here just makes it feel so eerily relatable and really well executed. And you get another one of those moments as he's getting stabbed. You get another like moment where it has this like staticky kind of blip, and I think you get another porn blip here, right? You see it for a split second. You see it flare up on the screen.
Yeah, there's one in this and there's one in the next murder for sure. Yeah, so he's consistent.
Now we go to that scene where Burns gets home. We're assuming he's been cruising the gay bars all night. He gets home. I mean, it's just a scene of him aggressively fucking Karen Allen. I mean, it's pretty aggressive, and I think this is a very telling and very strategic, on purpose scene to show. I don't think it's being shown just, oh, we need a straight sex scene in it. I think it's done for a very specific reason, because it does show how aggressive he is. Like I think it's signifying like all of his built up sexual desire and tension from being around all these sexual men all night. And this is his outlet. Because remember, he's not supposed to be like being around her. He's supposed to be isolating himself. Nobody can know what he's doing. He purposely goes to her apartment to release, and I think it's, you can even tell in her face that this is like new for her, like how aggressive he's being.
Knocking some walls out. And also I get the sense that it's him proving to himself that he's not a gay man, right? Like that he's been, immersed in all of this gayosity. And, if we're to go down the road that we all three seem to be going down, which is that he's like, his truth is sort of bubbling to the surface, this would be that moment. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna put it to her good. I'm a man. I'm a heterosexual man. That's what I got out of that scene.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what this is supposed to signify. Now we cut to Burns walking along the street with Ted. It's daylight now. Ted is telling him about he says roommate, Gregory, who is coming home because the cast of the production he was dancing in all caught hepatitis. So they had to end it. So and he's really flustered because Gregory told him he has to stop writing now and get a job. And because Gregory wants to be able to travel and relax and spend time on the beach, and so he's going to need Ted to step it up. They go to this restaurant for lunch. He basically there's this weird conversation that happens where Ted tells him about the guy Bobby that lived in the apartment before Burns moved in, and he's like he's real weird. He acted real eccentric, and I like to think about like why he acted that way sometimes. And there's this, I don't know. See if you guys picked up on this. The line where he's like, I think it's like insinuated that Bobby kind of wanted to end his life, right? Like he used to think about like ending things, and Ted says, I'm not ready to do that myself, but I can understand why Bobby wanted to do it. Like it's kind of hinting at maybe a suicidal thought. Then Steve chimes in and says, I wish there was something I could do for you. And Ted's like, no, I'll thank you. But then he says it again in a very like suggestive way. He's like, no, I really wish there was something I could do for you. I'm like, is he insinuating that he wants to like fuck him? That's what he wishes he could do.
I think there's not a lot of reason for the sake of the storyline for Ted's character to exist in the sense of what's going on up until the final moments. What does exist is there to be a character who I think is drawing Stephen's attention in a way that when the finale does happen, it almost, if you've been following the progression of who is the actual killer, and then you translate those motivations to Stephen's own mentality, it all kind of makes sense. It all kind of connects, same kind of reasoning behind that, because I think Stephen is becoming attracted to this character of Ted. I think that's very clear. And I think as the film goes on, he doesn't have to do this. This is not for his job. He doesn't have to be, sharing with this guy, developing this friendship. He's not suspecting this guy's the killer in any way. So there's no reason for him to do any more than he has to in portraying this character. But what he's doing is being very vulnerable with this guy and also expressing what is very apparent to me as an attraction, as some kind of an energy is developing between them, some kind of a sexual energy. And so I think when it does come up to the finale, like you do need to keep that in mind, that this is the character. If anyone in this film has drawn Stephen's attention in that way, that he's actually even kind of voiced it, this is the character he does that with. This is the character he becomes defensive of. This is the character he does develop this sense of almost caring for. For them to place a character like this in the storyline, there is a reason for that. They chose to give him these moments and to give Stephen these moments with him. So I think there is a lot of intentionality behind why they're playing with this developing energy between the two of them.
Yeah, it does feel like if we were to like do signposts of this character's progression, like this is the one that's like, not that I want to fuck this guy, but like I have affection for you and I wish there was some way that I could make you feel better about, not having suicidal thoughts. And so it's just sort of and the look on his face, because when he says that in the scene, it's like Al Pacino poker face. Like when he has these conversations with the playwright guy, he's always just dead faced, but he's saying things that are kind or nice or what have you. And it almost feels to me like he's just like fighting it, right? Like he doesn't want to reveal to this guy or himself. And so he's doing everything he can to like hold him at arm's length with like his face, but also can't help himself but to like say things that are, kind and helpful. I don't know. That's a lot to lay on a couple lines, but I feel like it's the beginning of like his affection for this dude.
There's a chemistry between the two of them that does not exist between Stephen and any other character over the course of this film. Not even Nancy Allen, I would say. Obviously Nancy Allen's his girlfriend and he cares about her and that's clear. But there is a sensual desire almost. You can see it in his eyes. You can see when he looks over and he gives him that glare. Like there is a chemistry between these two characters that's palpable, that's coming through the screen. And I wish they could have explored that a little more. Like, that's one thing, like, you don't get a ton of it because pretty soon Greg comes home.
Right. The movie's about to get real complicated.
Yeah, maybe that 40 minutes, there's some more interaction between Steve and Ted that was cut. Because, yeah, I think this is really the last real interaction these two have. Steve does have a big confrontation with Gregory, but I think this is really the last time he has any sort of dialogue with Ted, because that evening he leaves Ted and he goes back to the bars. And it's cop night, apparently. Everyone is dressed like a cop, which is really funny. I find this so ironic because he really is a cop and he gets thrown out of the bar for not being dressed in cop attire. They're like, you're not following protocol. Everyone, it's cop night. I thought that was funny. But as he's walking through before he gets kicked out, I mean, we're getting some pretty we're getting imagery of men getting whipped, nipples being aggressively pinched. He's seeing it all, but I just, like I said, I thought it was so funny that, ironic that he gets thrown out of cop night.
I got to give my credits real quick to the one gal right up in the camera, taking a police baton and just deep throating it. I mean, this girl was earning her paycheck. She's like, I'm going to be a star. They're going to see me. And we see her. I mean, she's just slobbering on this fucking police baton. And yes, it's precinct night. And you see everybody's got a costume on. But Pacino, and it's really, really well played. It's a funny moment.
But he leaves the bar, and because he's just wearing his jeans and his, like, a tank top, he leaves the bar. Some guy dressed as a cop has noticed him and follows him out and starts following him down the road. And Pacino does turn around and say, "Are you looking for something? Can I help you with something?" He's like, "That bulge in your pants looks like it needs some attention. Why don't we take a walk?" And Pacino's like, "No, how about another night?" And then we cut back to him in Nancy's bed. They're making the most awkward, dispassionate love I've ever seen. It's really sad. And again, another one of those moments where we're like, okay, because she's kissing him and then she proceeds to, like, go down on him. And this is the scene where you mentioned where he looks like he's about ready to cry.
You hear in this, he tips his head back, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the audio of the gay bars starts to swell up in the background, and so he's clearly thinking, he's associating with that, and he's thinking about that, and he's acknowledging, I'm fucking thinking about that gay bar and all those men in cop costumes sucking on police batons.
I was gonna say he saw how deep that baton went down that gal's throat. He's like, well, she can't do it this good. He's wanting that.
I was just gonna say, there's a shot at the end of, I believe it's Kansas City Trucking Company, Joe Gage's horn from the late 70s or early 80s, where there's a kid like 20-year-old, who throughout the movie is ostensibly straight or not, but in the end is part of one of Joe Gage's infamous big orgies. And then the last shot of the film, the camera pushes in on his face, and it's almost like this horrified look, like, what have I done? What have I become? And that's kind of what this shot reminds me of, as it pushes on Pacino's face, where he's just like, can't turn off his brain to enjoy Karen Allen's mouth on his dick. I think, I don't know why anybody questions whether or not Al Pacino's character is, like, becoming gay, because this right here just seems like the most obvious piece of evidence.
Here's the thing is, before I watched this film, for this review, I just read a few little blurbs about it just to kind of figure out, okay, what are people saying about it? Why do people consider it offensive? And when I did get to that whole thing about, it's basically telling you that if you hang around gay culture, you're going to be gay, because that's what happens to Pacino's character. So when I was watching it, I was expecting, like, oh, okay, this is, but there are clues the second he's on screen, like his very first scene. How are people thinking that this film in any way is saying that he has become gay because of being in the bars? Now that might have allowed him to maybe act on these feelings a little bit more or whatnot, because if he wasn't around in this environment, maybe he wouldn't have, the strong sexual desire for a man wouldn't have, risen so far. But I will maintain that Steve Burns' character had gay tendencies before ever stepping foot in any of these bars for this assignment. Period.
I agree. And I think this film is an indictment of society for keeping people in the closet and the damage that causes, right? Like by the end of the film and all the turns of events at the end of the film, it's not because he's gay, it's because he's been forced to be something he wasn't for so long. Now, obviously, that's not the best representation, but it's not that because you're gay, now you're a murderer. It's because you've been forced to live a lie that is so embedded in you that you can't let go of it. So you have to destroy things that you actually are attracted to. I mean, that's a generous approach to analyzing this film, but I think it could be legit. I mean, William Friedkin was a genius. Perhaps that was his intention.
That's exactly what I took from it, though. I mean, watching it again this time, for me, the whole time, I started picking up on his gay tendencies well before he was fully indulgent in the gay community. So there was something suppressed there. And when you think of the 80s, while yes, there were big strides being made at that time, incorporating queer life into culture and starting to become more and more prevalent, and there's still huge taboo element with the majority of the world, let's be real, especially within our country, though, that, for the straight masculine men, there's absolutely no way you could ever even possibly entertain that idea. And so you're suppressing, and you're self-loathing and hating yourself and all the shit that comes with that. I never, ever thought that his potential for what he maybe does at the end of this film, I never associated with him being gay. I associate with what he's had to suppress, being a man, being a cop, all this time has finally boiled over.
Okay, so now we see two men leaving a department store. I'm assuming they're I don't know if they're a couple or not. One of them's a designer. They part ways. He gets in his car and he makes a pit stop at an adult video store, where indeed another very popular place for men to cruise, because it is full of men cruising. And he sees the man in leather and a police hat and sunglasses. Again, we've gotten to see this image several times now, so we know this is probably not a good thing. He follows him into a room, puts a quarter in the machine, and they start watching a porn video. And basically, he gets up and starts, rubbing on the guy, starts to go down on him, and that knife comes out, it's plunged in his back, and you get that line again, "You made me do that."
Out of all the gays that die here in this movie, this one's my favorite. I think he's hauntingly beautiful. This guy is so fucking pretty. This victim here, god damn it, he's so hot. And this whole scenario is really fucking hot too. This whole porn room where you have to put in the corridor to watch the movie, and you sit there and fucking jack off next to the dude that's hot. And the way they film it, there's this great fucking punk soundtrack. I was shocked when I saw this, but this film was nominated for some Golden Raspberries, which is not a real thing. Like, let's be real. Fuck the Razzies. That's all nonsense and bullshit. But worst screenplay, get the fuck out of here. Worst picture, all that is nonsense. But it was nominated for a most intrusive soundtrack with another stinkers reviews. And I just need to point out here, I do not think this film has a bad soundtrack at all. I think this film has a phenomenal soundtrack, and I think this moment set against this punk track, as this guy is slowly going down. You see his face with the music projection over him, projected over his beautiful face as he dips into the shadows. I think this scene is fucking stunning, and I was like, bad soundtrack, get the fuck out of here. Everything about this movie is great, but the soundtrack is one of the best parts.
We're gonna have to have a fight because I completely disagree. I think except for this scene, which I think is the song by the Germs, I think the soundtrack to this movie is so terrible. And all those gay bar scenes, I'm like, that's not what gay people would be listening to in that bar. I will say this scene is where I realized that all of his victims are stabbed in the back, even if they're facing him. He reaches around to stab them in the back, which I just found interesting. As sort of a methodology for his murder. And I'm not sure what it says, but it's interestingly consistent. And you're right, this guy's a piece of ass. He's so cute.
But yeah, it's right in the middle of an arcade. I mean, again, the killer has no qualms about murdering when people are around, because there are literally people right outside the door that watch them go in. I mean, so it's pretty brazen. And again, that line, "You made me do that." It cut to Steve, or cut to Steve getting home, and he does hear that Gregory's back, because we were subjected to hearing them argue through the walls for a few minutes before Steve decides he doesn't want to hear it, and he leaves. This is that moment. Also, we cut to where Edelson has to go into the chief's office, and the chief is telling him that, you know, the mayor's on the phone, another gay man was murdered. You need to do something about this. You need to close this case, no matter. I don't care how you have to do it. You just need to get it done. Which probably not the best thing to say, because it does lead to some pretty shady shit here in a few minutes. But yeah, it kind of sets that up. It's also revealed when Edelson leaves the chief's office that they found that bloody quarter, and that they were able to get prints off of the quarter that did not match the victim. So they have the killer's fingerprints. This next scene, I don't know about this next scene. It's another random night at the bar with Pacino. This is the moment where we watch the fisting. We see that fisting right in the middle of the bar.
You know, if you're going to do it, I say go full hog. I've always said go full hog. And when you see that man bacon greasing up his fucking knuckles, and then they don't just cut away, then they cut to the gentleman's facial reaction as he takes the fist, and then you see the shot of the guy giving the fist, just looking down, yeah, and I was like, wow, they're really focusing on this fisting quite a lot. But again, good on them for saying we're diving into the world of gay kink. This is a thing that they do, and I'm pleased that they showed that man get fisted. I mean, I think they showed just enough of it for a mainstream film. But yeah, I thought that was a phenomenal choice to include.
Just think about your mom and dad going to see this movie, because that's who it would be. Your mother and father watching. So rumor has it that that's Bruno Kirby as the fisting top, and I don't know if that's true or not. I think that's in the IMDb, but I've looked at that guy a million times, and I'm trying to figure out erase the little mustache. Is that Bruno Kirby's face? Tough to tell. But also I noticed in the very first victim, his little hotel room, there was a little can of Crisco there. I don't know if you caught that. And so now we're back with the product placement.
Pacino does notice there's a man by the pinball machine. This is the guy that he's noticed at the bar a couple times, and he asks about him, and we find out it's Skip Lee. And the guy, he's a bad dude. You gotta stay away from him. And then this random man comes up and asks Steve to dance, and we get this very what is even the word? Frantic Pacino dance on the gay dance floor. I mean, he's giving it his all, I guess.
Listen, I don't know if Pacino's ever done poppers up to this point, but I guess for a man who has not done poppers to be inhaling them through a rag multiple times over, I wouldn't be surprised if this was one's reaction on a dance floor. I'm happy for him. He looks like he's having a great time. That's how I look if I was doing poppers on a dance floor. It's been a couple weeks, but overall, yeah, he's moving like a straight dude, but he's getting all into it. And I'm like, good for him. Let him have his moment.
I remembered that dancing being much worse, but rewatching it again, I'm like, that's okay. That's not, he's not making a fool out of himself too much.
No, not everyone. Nobody's really paying attention to him anyways. Everyone's doing their own thing. Skip leaves the bar with the guy, and Burns is now somehow in a cop car with a detective, and he points Skip out to him. He's like, that's the guy I need info on. Now, so that same detective then the next day hunts down, I believe this gal's name is Da Vinci. It's the blonde, the blonde wigged one. I believe her name's Da Vinci. She's looking very, demure in her costume, her get up. She's wearing that hat and that red mini skirt and everything. And she's playing that card game on the street. And he calls her over and asks her if she knows anything about Skip Lee. And she said, yeah, he works at that steakhouse. She tells him the name of the steakhouse. She also divulges this information. She says, that the night that guy was stabbed in that motel, my friends were there and they heard singing. And the detective's like, singing? She says, yeah, it was like a lullaby. who's there? I'm there, something like that. Very odd thing to reveal. Like, I don't know where that information would lead, but like, I don't know. I guess something happens later in the film that I guess you can connect to this moment. And we'll get there. We'll get there. So the detectives that evening, they go to the steakhouse that Skip works at. And the waiter takes their order. Basically, they go to the steakhouse to get the steak knives. And they take the steak knives back to the medical examiner. The medical examiner confirms, yes, this could very well be the knife that's being used in the murders. And we see it. It is the same knife.
They also make those steaks look so fucking good.
Oh,
I'm just
I
saying,
want one.
they're carving into them fatty steaks, and I was like, God damn it. They're really selling it. I mean, more than anything, I walked away from this movie wanting to get a fucking prime rib. That was my takeaway.
That other cop, by the way, is Ed O'Neill from like Married with Children.
Oh,
and yeah,
my
the
God.
little teeny role. Also, they made those two cops sit together like they were a couple, which I thought was interesting. Like they're sitting side by side at that table. I don't know where they get their steak knives. Every steak knife I've ever used in a restaurant could not cut paper. Like, I don't know how he's cutting off people's arms or whatever with this steak knife, but
yeah, no. So that evening, Burns does go back to the bar and he leaves with Skip. And the detectives are out in the car doing a stakeout and they watch him go into this hotel. They put out an old-fashioned listening device to try to listen to the conversation. And we do hear like snippets of it. We're hearing like, oh, you want to tie me up? Oh, that's weird. You want me to tie you up for real? And then they lose the signal. So the cops have no other thing to do than to get out and like go up to the room and like barge in. And we get Al Pacino butt-ass naked, hogtied on the fucking bed.
He looks his best out of the whole movie. This is his best shot. I mean, that furry little ass and like with the fucking wrist tied up behind his ass. Oh, he looks great. And I was not like, I forgot you got that fucking full on nude Pacino shot on the bed, but here we are. And I was more than okay with it. Yeah, I like how they're like knocking on the, like trying to like beating on the machine, trying to like get the audio to come through. And you're just getting like blips of it through static. And then eventually they're just like, fuck it. Like all of a sudden, like 50 dudes come out of nowhere with shotguns. It sounds about right, though. Like, that's what I would expect from the New York Police Department, I suppose.
Well, it also is convenient because it lets the movie get away without having Steve get fucked by that guy, right? Like, they rush in because they can't hear anything, but we know from the end of the film that they have the wrong guy. I'm going to spoil that for people. So what was going to happen is Steve was going to get hogtied and have sex with this dude. And they wouldn't have gone in had the guy, you know what I mean? They wouldn't have got busted in if the guy wasn't confessing or like literally murdering him. So the film got to like skirt the issue of whether or not Steve was actually having sex with dudes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where it was going to lead. You don't let yourself get hogtied like that unless you have. Because how is he going to get free? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
He just put himself in a position for Skip to do anything he wants to him. Now we got to the weirdest police interrogation I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm here for it though. They have both Skip and Steve in the interrogation room, and of course they're treating Steve like he is, a real, they're not giving any indication that he's a cop, but they're basically accusing Skip of trying to kill Steve. He's like, you were gonna kill him, weren't you? And he's denying it. They're both denying it. Suddenly, this giant black gentleman comes in wearing nothing but a jock strap. It doesn't say
like a cowboy hat, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't say anything and just proceeds to like slap Burns across the face. And so they separate Burns and Skip, put Burns in another room where he's able to like say, hey, you guys came in way too soon. Like, and who is this black gentleman that's coming in? But I feel bad because like Skip is like, they're really like getting aggressive with Skip. They're like telling him that he has to take his pants down, that they need a sample of his sperm. The black man comes back in and knocks him on his ass, bloodies his face. They tell him they're going to put his nuts in the water, and if they don't float, then they're just being really aggressive to him until one of the cops comes in and is like, oh, sorry, his fingerprints don't match the coin. He's not the man. He's not the guy. You just traumatized this poor kid. I mean, come on. There's not an apology. There's nothing.
What is the deal with that man? Like, I mean, come on. I feel like Sean, like this. You wrote a book about this shit. Give me the deal. Like, what's going on?
Sure. Right. So it's actually based on fact. It's actually based on police detective interrogation tactics of the time to have some weird, like, non sequitur situation happen to like throw the person that you're interrogating off balance, and get them to like speak a little bit more freely or defensively or something like that. Yeah, it does. But they don't present it with any context. I mean, there's the shot of him like reading the paper in the next room where Steve is like, washing off his face, and we all know that we're all cops here. But yeah, they don't give the audience like really any sort of like context for it. But then it's a weird moment of humor too, in a scene where, like, this is the most disturbing scene for me in the whole movie. The way they destroy this waiter character, and I think we as the audience know that he's not the killer, even though they catch him with the guy hogtied. I actually instinctively felt, oh, they've got the wrong guy. But it also is, how cops will treat gay people. That hasn't changed a lot. So yeah, I find this scene of even the murders I feel like are shot well and they're part of the plot, et cetera, et cetera. This is the one that's like a little too real for me.
Yeah, no, it is, because this poor Skip guy is destroyed, and find out he wasn't the killer. And yeah, I knew right away he wasn't the killer, because if you notice when the cops are listening, it is the Steve Burns character that's telling Skip to tie him up, because you hear Skip's voice clearly say, "I tie you up, dude. That's weird." Like, he doesn't want to do it. It's Pacino's character that convinces him to do it. So I was like, yeah, this poor kid is going to be traumatized for the rest of his life. And we never see that black gentleman with that ass, that firm ass. We never see him again.
Oh my God!
Thanksgiving dinner, my God.
Jeez Louise,
I know.
interrogate me.
I'll take the
from
hits,
from the inside out.
Come on now.
Yeah, so we get this moment where after this thing, Burns goes to Nancy's apartment, and he's definitely, now this whole thing is affecting him. These two don't have much chemistry in the movie at all to begin with, but like now he's like really off put by her. And she's like, well, maybe we should just cut loose for a while. And his reaction, he's like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's not like he's like, oh, honey, please, no, you don't understand. I'm going through a rough time. If you just give me, wait till this assignment's over. Nope. He's like, oh, okay. Let's start his drink, and walks out.
He's like, and now I can really fucking go all out without having any worries of the broad finding. Like, that's what he's thinking.
Yeah, he says yes too quickly.
He does say yes too quickly. But he goes to meet Edelson, and this is a moment of vulnerability for him, because he is telling Edelson that he basically, I do like this moment where he tells Edelson, what the hell happened? Why'd you work us over like that? I didn't come onto this assignment just so some guy could get the shit beat out of him because he's gay. Like, that's not why I'm doing this. And he says, like, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. It's really affecting me. I can't deal with it. I'm afraid. He doesn't really elaborate on what he's afraid of. I think we can make that inference. He's afraid he's getting in. His sexual desires for men are taking over. The captain blatantly says, you can't quit. You can't quit. If you do this, you will be my most experienced. You will make detective, basically. I need you. And so Steve, hesitantly agrees, and he gives Steve that yearbook, and says, this is a yearbook from Columbia. These are all the men in this yearbook that are checked marked. They were students of the professor that was murdered. I need you to look through the book and see if you recognize anybody.
Solid detective work, as opposed to a prostitute remembering a song that somebody told. You know what I mean? Like, the convenient thing. This is like, good cop work. I feel like I should sidebar say that the character's named Nancy, the actress is Karen Allen. We've been saying Nancy Allen every once in a while, and it's
I've caught myself doing that. I've heard,
yeah,
yeah, it's
it's too
confusing.
easy.
It's confusing. Yeah. Karen Allen, yes, is the actress, lovely. It's completely different
Nancy
than
is here.
Nancy Allen. Nancy Allen from Dressed.
My full instinct is to say the full name naturally. No, yes, yes, no. But I think how coded this sequence is here is really, I mean, really expertly played. And I mentioned like earlier, like there's this developing frustration between these two characters. That's really, I think, important for Steven because he's starting to kind of fall apart at the seams at this point. He's realizing how the cops are treating the gays. You know, he's now seeing it on the other end, on the other side of the spectrum. He's questioning things about himself. He literally says, "There's things going down that I'm not okay with." And like you said, Troy, like what is that coded for? It's obvious what that's coded for. But there's now like he has like this frustration and this resentment that is coming out towards the chief when he grabs the yearbook and he just takes off, just dash it out of there. Like, I mean, you could tell that he's really kind of pushed to the edge of what he's able to handle with this, and not just because he's scared for his life. It's because he's full on questioning everything about his sexuality. Like that seems so obvious to me.
Well, Burns does take the yearbook home, and he flips through it, and he does recognize a picture. And we have seen the guy. We see the picture. We have seen this guy out. We've seen him as the audience. He calls the registrar, who quite freely gives him the address. Like this would never happen today. Like she's like, "Oh yeah, here's his address." I'm like, "Really? It's that easy?" Like, okay. His name's Stuart Richards. So we do get moments of Stuart just going about his daily life. He's jogging. He's talking to his roommate. There's a moment where it's revealed through this conversation with his friend or roommate that his dad's going to cut him off. So he's going to have to get a job because his dad won't even buy him a car now. And all this time, Burns is spying on him. And one day when Stuart goes for a run, Burns literally like breaks into his apartment by pushing the window fan in and getting in. And he, does some snooping, opens that closet door, and right away we are hit with that police hat, the leather jacket that the killer wears. And he finds a box of letters and he goes through, and they're all addressed to John Richards in St. Louis, Missouri. And he reads through them. The one that kind of gets the most screen time is the one that says something about Dad, I don't know what's going on with me. I think I'm hallucinating because I'm seeing, when I go to the park, I'm seeing like large dark figures lingering in the trees staring at me. So you're like, oh,
Yeah. And now, like, we have a killer. When I watched this movie the first time, I thought, well, this can't be the killer because this is too obvious. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like, oh, no, this must be another misdirect, but it's not. And like, this is one of the problematic parts of the film where now it does feel like the killer is a killer because he's gay, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm looking at it too granularly in this case.
no, I'm gonna kind of sum up this whole thing here so that we're not. But like, yes, what we find out is that Stuart, he gets home. There's this moment where all of a sudden he's on the bus, and Burns is also watching him on the bus. But he gets home, and he's in his apartment. He's playing his little piano. He notices that the window unit is kind of tilted out of the window, so he goes to fix it, and that's when he looks out and he sees Burns staring at him, smirking. So he goes in, he runs into his bedroom, checks the closet, and looks at the letters, and then he's all of a sudden in the park where he sits next to his dad, and he's like, "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," and it starts intercutting with the shots of the victims that have been killed. And his dad's like, "Stewie, I took for granted that you understood what you had to do, and you know what you have to do." Now it transitions back to him in his bedroom, and he gets the boots and the regalia out of the closet, and out of the boot he pulls that steak knife.
I think one thing that hits me weird with this, I mean, what is like building to the finale is all of a sudden you're introduced to this character, Stuart, and you get this like whole montage of Steve like watching him from all these different situations, following him. You get slow zooms, you get vignettes, you get all these moments of him, basically, trailing him throughout the city. And so you're starting to like kind of get introduced to the life of this guy. And sure, you do through this series of events get introduced to this box of letters. And it seems like really heavy-handed. Like they're like, here's the plot, here's the tools to wrap it up. He's got a box of letters he's been writing to his dad. He sees this vision of his father that he's talking to him about all these problems he's having. His father starts saying him he knows what he has to do, which is very much in line with what he's been saying over the course of the film. And then like you're coming up on the finale, and it just seems like for a film that has really, really taken its time and slow burn developed the story as it's been unfolding, red herrings and suspects and clues and figuring it out, and all of a sudden you hit this final chunk, and I feel like they just breeze the fuck through this whole like last 15 minutes. This arc, I think, deserves significantly more time and explanation and exploration of Stuart and what he was struggling with. Like, if you're going to go there, if you're going to hint at schizophrenia or mental illness, if you're going to explore his personal internalized guilt, like, I get that. People process this shit in a lot of weird ways. I'm not even offended by the fact if you're going to say the reason he's killing is because he's struggling with the fact that he's queer. A lot of people are driven to do crazy, shitty things because they're suppressing themselves. I don't find that offensive. What I don't like is the fact that they just kind of throw it out there to the audience. They're like, this is how we're going to wrap it up. Here's the storyline. We're just going to put it all out there for you, and you're at the end of the movie. And I felt like this felt like a really, really rushed last 15 minutes. I don't know if you guys feel in a similar way.
It feels like a different movie, and I think one of the reasons, and I've always thought that, I think one of the reasons is it moves from everything happening at nighttime to everything happening in the middle of the day. And so it feels like a different mystery that's being solved because you, like you say, we are sort of like shown everything, and all the cinematography changes and the way they look changes. And so I don't know, it's a tough one, because if this movie is about that, specifically that killer killing gay men, it does feel rushed. But there's that last like 10 minutes of the movie that we haven't gotten to yet that would say that this movie's about something else. And so maybe wrapping this part up is just in service of what perhaps is the bigger picture of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the ending I think is quite ambiguous. I'm not even fully convinced after a couple watches that Stuart was really the one that killed all of these men. I think there's a lot of obviously there's another killer, as we find out here as we barrel towards the ending. But yeah, I mean, I guess I just was really confused about like the motivation they're trying to give Stuart for being the killer. Is it because he's gay? He's struggling with being gay? Is it just simply because he has schizophrenia? What is the fact that he keeps telling his victims, "You made me do that"? Is he saying that because they awoken his sexual desire, so he has to kill them? Is the vision of his father telling him, "You know what you have to do"? It's just all very, I don't know. It's very weird, but I think as we continue towards the ending of the film, I just think that the ending is, for me, is where the film maybe loses a lot of points. I think everything has been done so well up to this point, and then we get to these final moments, and it's kind of drops the ball for me. It doesn't wrap things up as tidy as I want it to, and maybe that's just my preference, but we get one more night of Burns going out, and before he goes out, he stops at the apartment next door to check on Ted. Ted's not there. Gregory answers, who's played by a very young James Remar I know him from Dexter, but he's been in so much. Looking mighty fine in those little green briefs he's wearing.
He's recovered from hepatitis, apparently.
I mean, but he's immediately a dick to Steve. He tells him Ted's working. He needs to work because it keeps him busy, so he can't get involved with what he got involved with, like last time, like that last piece of trash that lived next door. I mean, this basically culminates into a full-fledged fight where Steve is like in a rage, busts into his apartment and like throws him across the room. We get Gregory grabbing a knife and telling him to get the fuck out. It escalates very quickly.
We get Greg in those green briefs, filling them out like nobody's fucking business. My God, looking good. That fanny's looking tight too. I love the moment he's like, "You want to party? Let's fucking party." And you can tell he's fucking terrified because fucking Al Pacino's just coming at him like he's fucking on bath salts. I mean, like Al Pacino, it's also like not fully explained. Like he has this rage element that comes out of nowhere. I don't know if he's drunk or I don't know what necessarily pushes him, but we haven't seen him get this hostile, this heated, this angry yet to this point in the film. And there's something that pushes him here, and you got to come back to the fact that Ted has been the one gay character that he is connected with, that he's been forming that bond with. And so there is this almost defensive element coming in where here's what Greg is saying about Ted, and he's literally irate over it. And I wonder if it's almost like a scorned like lover, or a defensive lover kind of mentality, stepping in to defend the guy he cares about.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's totally defending Ted. And also for the audience, though, it's like, wait a minute, there's more gay psychos out there, or there's another one, or you know what I mean? It's like the world of gay men is filled with murderers, or I don't know, it feels a little extraneous to me. I mean, it's so on the nose when he pulls out that knife, like he might be the killer, dot dot dot.
Well, now we're getting to the meat of the film. I mean, this is the big showdown where after leaving, he finally leaves because Gregory pulls that knife on him and tells him to get the fuck out. So Steve leaves, but he goes to Stuart's apartment and basically stalks him, buzzes him, watches him through the window, watches him leave, and then follows him into the park, Central Park. And Stuart has a seat on one of the benches and lights up a cigarette. So Burns goes to the bench next to him, lights up a cigarette. He takes out a cigarette. He goes over to Stuart and asks for a light. And Stuart hesitantly gives him a lighter. And they take a drag off their cigarette, flick their cigarettes. And then this is when Steve looks at him and he says, "I'm here, you're here, we're here." I'm like, how would you know that? Again, but then again, the Da Vinci gal told the detective, but why would he tell? I don't know. It's just really weird that he would know that and he would say that. Like, to me, that would be like giving it away that I know you're the killer, right? It's very odd.
But I think it's also, right, I think it's also a red herring for us, right? Like, it's the filmmaker, like, making us like, was it Al Pacino the whole time?
Oh, see, I didn't even think about that. That is a really great point that I thought that I was like, how would he know that? Oh, I guess the detective must have told him that Da Vinci said that but actually I like that better. I think that actually fits. Because, and the guy, he says, you're very funny. And Pacino puts on his hat and they're like, "You got a place?" And this guy's really aggressive. He's like, "Yeah, I got a place." Like, he doesn't even seem like he's into it. Like, he seems really angry. Stuart does. But Stuart suggests they go to a tunnel. And they go to the tunnel and nobody's around. And I mean, Pacino's Burns character wastes no time. Like, he's totally comfortable. He pulls down his pants. He tells Stuart to pull down his. He wants to see. What's he say? "I want to see the world."
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we're coming up to the worst line in the movie. I think you're about to say the worst line in the movie.
What's the worst line in the movie?
Hips or lips?
Hips or lips?
No gay man has ever said that in the world of gay man. That is the stupidest line.
Hips or lips? Yeah.
There's also the line though where he asks him how big he is, and he says party size.
Party size.
I do like that. I do like that.
That's pretty good.
None of this is erotic or sexual at all. It's just all very like awkward,
transactional.
It's very well, Stuart starts to pull down his pants, and see this, the way this is edited, like, is also, I think, a misdirect as well, because it's really hard to see who pulled the knife first. Because you see Pacino as Stuart's down on the ground pulling his his pants down. Pacino steps on between his legs to catch his pants. And it's really hard to see. Yes, Stewart pulls the knife out, but Pacino already has a knife. And like, it's really hard to see who does it first. So who, but Pacino actually stabs Stewart in the side and is able to, knock him out or get him down on the floor. And now it's the hospital room. But like, yeah, the way this was, I watched it several different times to see if I could figure out, was Stewart going for the knife? Who was going for the knife first? And I think that's an important question because of how all these little clues about, is Burns possibly the killer? I think it's a really important.
I think there is if you could possibly track that Stewart is not the killer, Burns is laying that on him, right? So, just like we have Stewart having the imaginary conversation with his father, perhaps Al Pacino's character has been having imaginary conversations and encounters throughout this whole film, and he has laid on Stewart because there's evidence that sort of points that way conveniently, that that Stewart's the killer when in fact he is the killer. There's, I think, some debate, like you said, you can't tell who pulls the knife first. You can't tell who goes first. So I don't know. I feel that feels like purposeful to me. Again, leading up to this last 10 minutes that we're about to talk about.
I also think if we're going to talk in the sense of like how we're just going to build this up to what is, if this guy is going to be, at least for the moment, treated as the killer, for a moment you think, oh, they got it. This is the killer. This whole moment, if I'm talking about the pacing of things, and we also keep in mind, a lot of people say this is not a horror movie. You can't look at it as a horror movie. Here is a moment in which I see that, because this whole sequence here is, as soon as he gets him into this tunnel, it moves so fast, and before you know it, they're pulling out knives, and Pacino stabs him, and the guy's fucking down on the ground. And like, it is such like an anticlimactic almost moment. Like it hits so fast. Like, it's not like it's like building and building and building. Like, they are about to fuck it out, like behind this tunnel, and then all of a sudden they're pulling out knives, and one of them gets stabbed. Like, it just happens so fast that you're right, Troy. It's not only is it hard to determine who pulled the knife first, but it's like, it's just all of a sudden you're hit with the idea of like, this guy who is now the main suspect is now defeated. Like, so quickly this guy is stabbed and defeated, and it just feels very just like I said, anticlimactic for me.
They pile on so much stuff in these last 5 minutes of the film. I mean, yeah, this happens quickly. We're in the hospital room. Edelson's there, tells Stewart that, the man you attacked was a police officer. And we know that you killed the man at the arcade because it was your fingerprint on the quarter that we found, which I don't know if I believe that that's strong enough evidence. I don't know. But then also he's like, oh, and if you confess that you killed the other gentleman, you'll only get 8 years. I was like, 8 years for a mass murder? A serial killer is going to get 8 years? He killed like how many men? Like all these bodies washed up, and I'm going to get you 8 years. Stewart basically says, you know what? Do what you need to do, because all you're going to get is an indictment. You're not going to get anything else because I didn't do this. And Burns is thanked by Edelson, and he's welcomed to the detective unit. So that worked out well for him. We do get this brief moment where cops are at Stewart's apartment. They find the letters, and it is revealed by the roommate or the friend that his dad has been dead for 10 years. But he still talks about him like he's alive, obviously. And now I don't know. This part where we cut to Ted's apartment, and he's dead. He's been murdered. He's been stabbed. Like, what? So there are so many things that this could be signifying that we could literally probably dissect it for hours, because I truly don't know what the purpose of Ted being murdered after we think that Stewart's the killer is found. Are we supposed to believe that Gregory snapped and killed him because they were always fighting? Are we supposed to believe that Burns, Steve, killed him, which is very much insinuated in the next scene? Or are we supposed to believe that there's just another random gay serial killer is the New York full of gay serial killers? Or are we supposed to believe they caught the wrong person altogether and it's none of the above? It's just some other person that they didn't. I mean, what the fuck? What are we supposed to take away from this?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Al Pacino doesn't know either, because he said infamously in interviews that he and Friedkin did not get along during the shoot, and he has said that Friedkin gave him nothing as far as that last scene, so he doesn't know if the character went gay, as he says, went gay, or killed the guy, or what have you. So it feels like by design it is confusing to us.
It's so out of left field. It's so shocking that, I mean, again, the questions I had were raised 20-fold when it came to this moment, and I still don't know what the fuck to believe. I don't know.
It's very specific when you listen to the dialogue that the officers are having, because one of the officers is, I believe, the gentleman from like the opening scene in the cop car. I'm pretty sure that's
Simone.
Yeah, correct. So, and then if you're listening to what he's saying, he brings up the fact that this apartment had been registered to Steve Burns' alter ego. He was using the name John. And so when the chief hears that, he has this whole moment where he goes like wide-eyed, and he like peers into the bathroom and looks at the corpse, and you get this really like horrific, haunting visual of Ted like sprawled out on the floor, stab marks in his torso, and really violent. But like there's this whole moment of the chief looking down at him, and there's a lot of things that could be going through his head. Oh fuck, I thought this had been wrapped up, and now it's not. Now I'm gonna look horrible. Oh fuck, this was right next to Steve Burns. Is he the one that could be fucking doing this the whole time? Like there's a lot of little things that they kind of leave hanging, but it's very specific that they bring up the fact to the chief that this had been the exact apartment that was registered to Steve. This guy was living next door to him. That leads into this transitional moment of the chief having this moment of shock. And then we go to Steve's apartment. And I do think the way that they pace this out, the way this moment kind of builds, I do think all signs point to Steve being the one that did it. I hate that. I don't want that to be the case. Like, from the character's angle, I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Ted to be dead. Like, that's a character that I do not think deserved what was coming to him. And it is not in line with the other individuals who had been killed prior. So, like, why is Ted the exception? What makes him the exception? Is this the first time that Steve is killed and he's doing it for his own reasons and he's killing the guys that he's attracted to? Like, is this a completely separate, isolated incident? I don't know. I wish it gave me more, because it does leave me feeling like I'm left just hanging when it comes to this ending.
I don't think you can. So I don't think you can pin I don't think you can pin any of the murders on Steve, except for possibly Ted, because they start happening before Steve is on the case, right? Like that opening murder happens before Steve is even in the mix for like being plunged into the gay world and being infected by it, blah, blah, blah. So I think that is pretty solid evidence that they got the right guy at the end. I'm with you, Roger. I hate it for the character that possibly Steve decided that Ted needed to die so he could have a clean slate moving forward as a detective. Like that's what I feel like is we're supposed to consider, right? Like, okay, this is wrapped up. There's one loose end, and it's this dude who I had feelings for. And if I get rid of that, then I'm off to my like great life as a detective with Karen Nancy Allen having sex with her once again. And I just, it's kind of heartbreaking, honestly, because it feels like the movie is smarter than that until that moment.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, his murder, like you mentioned, Roger, is so different than all the other ones. He wasn't cruising. He's murdered in an apartment, like not his apartment, but an apartment in his apartment building. It's not like he was out in the woods. He wasn't, taking guys home from bars. Yeah, it's just very odd. And I do think, that Sorvino's character's reaction, I think he does suspect that something is not right, because his last words are when he looks down, he puts everything together. He's like, Jesus Christ. And this is also the moment where where he recognizes that De Simone's character is a real person, that that Da Vinci was telling him the truth at the beginning, because he notices De Simone, Precinct 6, and he just seems so defeated. Like he's like, shit, everything I thought I knew, I don't know. And then it moves to this final scene where Steve and Karen Nancy Allen are in their apartment. They're back together. I mean, I think it's very telling that the murder of Ted shifts to now him back with Nancy. He's resuming his normal life because he did tie up that loose end that could have caused him a lot of problems. So now he's back, and she puts on, he has this police hat, he has the leather jacket and everything out in the living room. He's shaving and he tells her, I'll be out there in a minute. While he's shaving, she puts on the hat and the leather jacket and stuff. And we get that moment where he's shaving and all of a sudden, like he turns around and he gives that weird kind of dead-eyed look straight into the camera. And then the film cuts to, I think, my interpretation, or I'm thinking maybe like the film began with that barge boat that found the body, and then it ends with a shot of that barge boat. And I'm assuming we're supposed to assume that it's on its way and that there more bodies are going to be found I don't know. It's just really weird. I struggle with this ending. I think that I do think that Steve killed. I do think he killed Ted, but I don't know. Just an odd ending for the film.
Well, and let's also acknowledge that when Kathy Nancy Allen is trying on the jacket, I mean, it is the exact wardrobe the killer has been wearing. It is a leather jacket. It is those dark glasses, and it is that police, which the whole time the killer has been wearing those specific items. And yes, Stewart had those items, but technically, so did Steve. He is a police officer. He's been wearing leather jackets the whole movie. It's one of those things. I think it's very intentional that you see her try on those items and looking at herself in the mirror, loving it. And then you realize, oh, this is the exact same wardrobe. This is the same fucking wardrobe that this killer has been wearing this whole time. So I think that there is a lot of intentionality behind that. And the fact he looks at the camera, dead into the camera, I think it's almost like an I know and you know, and we're not going to say it and we're not going to address it. But deep down, you don't want to admit it, but Steve did fucking kill Ted because he knew that as long as he didn't, he would be fixated on that. He would continue to want that. And killing Ted for him was severing those ties and going right back to the normal life where he can continue to act as though it never.
I think Karen Allen's the killer. I think that's what it says at the end.
Well, she didn't get anything else to fucking do, so the poor thing, at least let her be the killer.
She knew that her husband/boyfriend was actually a closeted homosexual, and she could not stand for that. And so she started killing gay men.
Well, you would think she'd be happy the way he started railing her after he realized he was a closet homosexual, but maybe not.
That poor girl, like a rag doll, like a fucking rag doll getting thrown up and down against that bed.
The ending, though, I mean, just, whew.
It just betrays the whole rest of the movie. Like, I'll go to the mat for this movie any day of the week. I think it's really well made. But the ending, I feel like, he didn't stick the ending. He didn't stick the ending. It just.
Yeah. I love this movie. I love the style. I love the look. I love how it's paced until you get to that final, 15-minute stretch. And it just feels like it deserved so much more. It deserved more time. It deserved a bigger climax. It deserved a better conclusion, more so than anything. I think the audience deserves to know exactly what the fuck is going on here. And if there's anything that maybe now looking back in retrospect, saying I'm someone who's not offended by this film, I think that in its this very obscure ending that does not wrap up these loose ends, you are left assuming a lot of things. And I think that it's easy for your mind to go to negative connotations about him being gay, potentially a closeted homosexual. You start to go to these negative connotations because what other reasons would he have to do what he's doing other than that self-hatred, a lot of the things that Stewart was also experiencing for his own reasons. And that does leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth as a viewer, because you're right, this film is not that stupid. This film is quite intelligent, and I think it was executed so well it deserved a finale. that lived up to the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, an important film. I agree with everything you said in terms of the film is well made, an important film in the history of queer cinema for sure. But yeah, it just didn't stick the ending. But there is so much more about this film that I think deserves recognition. And I know people, like we've talked about it, people do find aspects of this film offensive. I'm with you, Roger. I really don't, but I wasn't around during this time period when it came out. And I know, a lot of the gays in New York were basically they were angry that the film was depicting like a gay serial killer. They didn't really know the story. The film obviously hadn't been made. The film's based on a book. I'm assuming they got a hold of the book to realize. But again, it's a true story. This, like, there really was a serial killer in New York who was killing gay men who's never been caught. But if you want more insight into the film, listeners, there's a great little 45-minute documentary on YouTube about the making of Cruising. There's a lot of really interesting little tidbits that Friedkin gives us, and you learn about how he went about making the film, preparing for the film, getting ideas for the film. So I'd say check that out. But I'd also be curious to know I want to hear our listeners, Roger. I want to hear their interpretation of the ending. What is their interpretation of the ending? Do they think that Steve is a killer, or what's going on with the ending? We want to hear your thoughts.
We also want you to vote for your favorite ass throughout the whole course of the film. Take a screenshot of it and post it on social media for us so we can look at it. No, don't do that. But no, yeah, we do want to hear your opinions on the finale and just the film in general. I think if there's one movie our listeners are going to have opinions on, it's this one. And so definitely make sure to leave comments. And above anything, make sure to support our guests. Sean, thank you so much for coming on today. I knew this was going to be a blast. This is definitely, I think, our longest episode ever. I told Troy, I was like, we'll make it a short one. And here we are. We're almost 3 hours in. But,
you can pull that up, right? You can pull those up.
She's going to trim it down, right, Troy? Troy's always like, that doesn't happen.
I'll try to trim it.
You can cut anything I have to say. I'm talking out my ass the whole time.
Oh my God, stop. No, you were wonderful. And if anything we want you to say is, please tell us, where can our listeners follow you? Give us the socials, give us the book title again, remind them everything they need to look into before we cut you loose.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. This has been a delight. I have been a big fan of the podcast for ages, even before I forced my way onto it. But yes, I will pimp this out all over the place, and I always speak highly of it. For me, as far as I'm concerned, the book that just came out is Queer Horror, a Film Guide, and available at all finer online booksellers, except apparently Amazon right now. But you can go to the McFarland Publishing website and get that book. I'm Gay of the Dead almost every place else. So that's my Twitter, that's my Instagram, that's my Patreon, where you can, for the low price of absolutely free, go on to my Patreon and read interviews with LGBTQ filmmakers working in horror, including Roger Connors and soon to include Troy. How do you say your last name? I've never heard it out loud.
It's, if you want to be technically correct pronouncing it the real way, it's Escamilla.
Escamilla.
Yeah,
I do want to be correct.
Okay.
Escamilla.
But I always I pronounce it the white boy Iowa way and always say Escamilla. Because I grew up in Iowa, and it was just easier pronouncing it the way it looks than trying to explain to people why you're saying it a weird way, because double L's in Spanish or Y's, whatever.
I know. Trust me. My last name is always mispronounced, so I feel you. Yeah. Anyway, that's where you can find me, and please find me. I would love for you to find me.
We've definitely found you, and our listeners are definitely going to seek you out. I guarantee you, especially with that book. I know so many people are excited for it. I think I'm so thrilled that we have something like that now. I just really appreciate your efforts. I appreciate you coming on. This was a great conversation, as we knew it would be. But Roger, real quick, we usually tell our listeners what our next pick is going to be. I haven't a clue. I don't know.
Is it your turn or is it my turn?
I mean, I could come up with something real quick off the top of my. I picked Motel Hell. I picked Motel.
I would consider this my choice. Well, I don't know. Do you pick one, Troy?
Okay, so
I want it to be your choice.
Okay, I got it. I got it. I'm looking at my list, and Sean, you have to let me know if you think this is a good one or not.
Okay.
I know Roger is a huge Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. He loves Tobe Hooper. We're gonna do one of his more obscure films, but really, wacky, crazy Texas Chainsaw Massacre influenced films. Eaten Alive.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Another with Marilyn Burns.
Yeah,
I can't
exactly.
wait. Oh,
It's on my list. It's right there. That's the one we're doing. Eaten Alive. That fucking alligator that's chasing that little girl through the whole fucking movie.
That movie is weird. It is like, that movie is sort of the testimony for Steven Spielberg actually directed Poltergeist. Like, because that movie is such
it's so weird.
a mess.
I can't wait to talk about. Oh my god, Roger going to be wearing that wig that she has on throughout the whole movie.
I can't wait. I can't wait. This is gonna be great. I'm putting you on the spot every time next time moving forward, Troy. You're picking it right in the moment.
All right, listeners. Again, thank you for listening. Check out Sean. Check out all of his social medias. Check out the book. Check out his Patreon, and join us next week when we're getting eaten alive. All right. Good night.